The Ars Goetia is the first section in the 17th century grimoire known as the Lesser Key of Solomon. It details the 72 demons allegedly summoned by King Solomon, each possessing unique capabilities and attributes, and today we're talking about 5 of them. So prepare yourself for this dark journey. Kicking off our list, we have the Grand Marquee of Hell, Andras. Depicted as an angel with either a raven's head or riding a raven, Andras is said to sow discord and can be very dangerous to the unprepared. According to the legend, it takes courage to summon Andras, since he will test the summoner's courage before appearing. The summoner can be given knowledge of hidden truths, but at a great risk, since he is known to deceive and manipulate. From what we know so far, would you ever try to invoke him? And if so, what precautions would you take? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Andras is often invoked by those seeking revenge or justice, making him a popular choice among dark practitioners. He is also associated with the element of fire and is said to have control over destructive forces. Seen as a demon of war and conflict, Andras is often depicted as riding into battle on a black horse and wielding a sword. Obviously, this solidifies his reputation as a powerful and fearsome entity. As with many demons, there are those who believe Andras can be beneficial if summoned and controlled properly, but it's important to remember the risks involved when dealing with such dark entities. It is always recommended to seek proper guidance and protection before attempting any summoning rituals involving Andras or any other demon. On top of that, Andras is believed to have a special connection with crows and ravens. These birds are often seen as messengers of darkness, which further adds to the ominous aura surrounding Andras. Some also believe that Andras has the power to shapeshift into different forms, making it easier for him to deceive his victims. This ability adds a level of unpredictability and danger when dealing with this demon. Next up, we have Bellet, a powerful and frightening king of hell who commands 85 legions of demons. He is known for his furious and roaring voice, and he rides a pale horse. Bellet is depicted as a soldier wearing red armor with fiery eyes and a fierce countenance. Bellet's name derives from the Canaanite god Baal, which means Lord. He was worshipped by ancient civilizations as a deity of fertility, rain, and storms. However, in Christian demonology, he is seen as one of the most dangerous demons capable of instigating bloody wars and causing destruction. Bellet is also known for his ability to deceive and manipulate humans. He can appear in the form of a man or beast, often taking the shape of a cat, dog, or even an angel. His purpose is to tempt humans into committing sins and leading them astray from their faith. According to demonologists, Bellet can be summoned by those who wish to gain power and control over others. However, it is believed that he will turn against his summoner once his desires are fulfilled. This further emphasizes his treacherous nature and the danger of making deals with demons. He is customarily seen riding a pallid horse, and his presence is often heralded by a cacophony of assorted music. When he appears, his appearance is exceptionally fierce, intended to intimidate the conjurer, testing his courage. And let me tell you, you'd have to be the bravest person on earth to conjure a demon like this one. The one summoning him must exhibit bravery, and while holding a hazel wand, delineate a triangle striking in the directions of the south, east, and upward. Bellet must then be commanded to enter this triangle using specific invocations. If he does not comply, the conjurer must repeat the threats and invocations, after which Bellet will submit and carry out what he is ordered to do. Nevertheless, the conjurer must express respect and pay homage to Bellet due to his status, and hold a silver ring on the middle finger of the left hand against his face in accordance with the traditions of infernal kings and princes preceding Aimon. And our runner-up is Paimon, a demon king who is incredibly obedient to Lucifer. Paimon is known to grant many wishes, and his presence is always marked by loud music. When you think of a demon, you immediately imagine something horrendous looking, right? But don't be fooled by Paimon. This demon is portrayed as a strikingly handsome man, adorned with a crown of great value astride a dromedary. Sounds too good to be a demon, right? Frequently, a procession of demons and ghouls bearing a humanoid form precedes him, creating music with various instruments such as trumpets and cymbals. Upon arrival, he greets with a thunderous voice, booming and roaring for some time until the summoner gains control. Paimon's control over sound is not merely for show, but it also serves a purpose. In demonology, Paimon is often associated with divination and the ability to reveal hidden knowledge. His loud music and booming voice are believed to serve as a medium for communication between the human world and the spiritual realm. This makes him a valuable ally for those seeking answers or guidance from beyond. Paimon's role as a demon king being also grants him immense power and authority among other demons. He is often depicted as having the ability to control and command legions of demonic entities, making him a formidable force in the supernatural world. Despite being portrayed as a powerful and intimidating figure, Paimon is said to be incredibly obedient to Lucifer and often acts as his messenger, carrying out his orders without question. This further solidifies his reputation as a loyal and trustworthy demon. Paimon's portrayal as a handsome, charming figure, coupled with his abilities and loyalty, has made him a popular character in literature, films, and other forms of media. He's often seen as a symbol of temptation and the dangers of seeking power and knowledge from dark forces. However, it should be noted that Paimon is still a demon, with all the malevolent intentions and desires that come with it. While he may grant wishes and reveal hidden knowledge, his ultimate goal is to corrupt and tempt humans into serving him and ultimately falling under the influence of Lucifer. Zephyr, the 16th spirit of Arscoetia, shifted from his angelic roots to one of the distinguished dukes of hell. He embodies the visage of an indistinct soldier garbed in red armor and attire. His infernal responsibilities revolve around love, lust, and sodomy, harboring no affection for mankind. Predominantly, he is invoked by male disciples to induce women to love them. The price of this induced love is infertility. The women affected will not bear the man's children and may even become barren. Zephyr is also known for his love of beauty and luxury. He can often be found indulging in lavish feasts and parties, enjoying the finer things in life. This demon sounds a little bougie. However, Zephyr's true power lies in his ability to manipulate emotions. Not only does he have the power to make women fall in love with men, but he can also incite feelings of jealousy, hatred, and anger in those around him. This power makes Zephyr a dangerous adversary, as he can turn friends against each other or cause chaos and destruction with just a flick of his wrist. He is also known for being quite cunning and manipulative, often using his charm to get what he wants. But despite his sinister reputation, Zephyr is not all bad, apparently. He is said to be fiercely loyal to those he considers friends and will do anything to protect them. He also has a deep love for music and is known for his beautiful singing voice. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect of Zephyr is his seemingly contradictory nature. On one hand, he is a powerful demon with the ability to manipulate emotions and cause chaos. On the other hand, he has a love for beauty and music, showing that even the most evil beings can have a softer side. Zephyr is a complex and multifaceted demon with a range of abilities and characteristics. He may be feared by many, but there's no doubt that he is a fascinating figure in the world of demonology. Zephyr's personality initially appears self-absorbed, showing discontent when events do not favor him. Nevertheless, he acknowledges this flaw and offers apologies for his early behaviors. He's recognized as a confidant of the demoness Lilith. Zephyr is particularly fond of beguiling women, and per their request, he can transform his form to that of their desired man. Through Zephyr, one can achieve the companionship of another female or conjure a succubus's shadow form via dream sorcery. Some sources suggest that Zephyr attempts to seduce men, while others indicate that he provokes love between men and women. Utilizing dream sorcery, Zephyr aims to seduce a woman deemed suitable to be his wife. Zephyr also has a talent for magic, specializing in illusion. He is knowledgeable in alchemy, works as a military scientist, spy, troubadour, merchant, and an assassin. I'd be scared if I saw this demon, because what can't he do? And finally, the first and the most formidable among them, Bael. Originally belonging to the ranks of highly regarded angels, Bael participated alongside Lucifer in the Heavenly War. Following this celestial conflict, he was expelled with his rebel companions into the chasm that subsequently evolved into hell. According to folklore, Bael was once an angel who fell from grace due to his pride and rebellion against God. He was cast out of heaven and sent to rule over the underworld, where he became the powerful demon we know today. Bael is often described as a fierce demon with 3 heads, one of a toad, another of a cat, and the last one of a human. This physical appearance makes him stand out among other demons and has been the subject of many stories and legends. Bael has the power to make those who summon him invisible, and his eerie presence is marked by a hoarse voice. Despite his fearsome reputation, Bael has also been known to be a patron of artists and writers. It is said that he can inspire creativity and bring success to those who seek his guidance in their creative pursuits. And some traditions, Bael is also associated with protection and can ward off evil spirits or curses. It's believed that wearing an amulet or talisman with his symbol can provide a shield against malevolent forces. However, summoning Bael is not without its dangers. He must be approached with caution and respect, as he is known to possess great power and knowledge. Failure to show proper reverence and control during a summoning can result in disastrous consequences. Despite this, many still seek out Bael for his abilities and knowledge. His power over invisibility and protection make him a valuable ally to those who are willing to take the risk of summoning him. But like all demons, Bael is ultimately bound by his own nature and desires. It's important to remember that he is not inherently good or evil, but simply a being of immense power with his own motivations and objectives. He's the king ruling over 66 legions of demons. Bael has the power to make those who summon him invisible, and his eerie presence is marked by a hoarse voice.
First up, we have Incubus. This dark demon is said to take on the appearance of a male human who tries to impregnate unsuspecting women while they are asleep. Now, the goal of Incubus is to use his unsuspecting victims to birth demons and witches in order to create more servants of hell and devil worshippers. The word incubus is actually derived from the Latin language and directly translates to nightmare. So keeping that in mind, it only makes sense that this demon would appear in the shadows of the night to prey on his victims. It is not known how many dark beings Incubus could have fathered, but it is believed that the famous magician Merlin was actually created by Incubus. Many people believe that Merlin would actually spread dark magic in the towns that he traveled to while he was under the demon's control. Now, some people also believe that this demon has actually been summoned through a Ouija board on multiple occasions. There are many stories that people find their partners alone in bed doing some unspeakable acts by themselves. It also appears that any woman who has been a victim of Incubus has no recollection of the events that led to their eventual pregnancy. And once a Ouija board has been used to summon Incubus, it is incredibly hard to get rid of him. This is not as simple as opening a door and kicking someone out of your house when you want them to leave. Some of the oldest tricks that were used in the medieval era include covering your bed in black salt and burning special types of incense that Incubus really doesn't like. So unless you want to have a very disgusting visitor arrive in your home, the Incubus is one demon you should never activate with a Ouija board. So do you believe that Ouija boards are as dangerous as people claim? Give us your thoughts in the comments down below as we check out some more demons. Next up is Beelzebub. This demon is viewed as many different things by many different people, which brings up the possibility that it could be a real-life shapeshifter. Now, most demons have a clear goal that they want to achieve, and they have various ways of manipulating their victims in order to obtain what they want. Beelzebub loosely translates to Lord of the Flies, which has led many to believe that this demon could very well take on the appearance of a small insect. However, other stories have described Beelzebub as a large demon that actually commands a huge army of insect-like creatures. It is said that Beelzebub uses its many servants to cause destruction and wreak havoc on Earth through violent attacks. These servants are generally regarded as scum and excrement that are lurking in the deepest depths of the underworld. Some religious figures even believe that these servants are damned souls who are forced to carry out their Lord's dirty work for the rest of eternity. The Catholic Church especially fears Beelzebub, as he is even mentioned in the Bible. The scribes in Mark 3:22 have actually accused Jesus Christ himself of working directly with Beelzebub. Some believe that the Lord of the Flies was banishing evil spirits away from Earth on Jesus' orders so he could gain even more servants. Now, anything that commands an army of evil spirits and has the ability to shapeshift should not be taken lightly. Summoning Beelzebub with a Ouija board can enrage the demon and cause it to take over your day-to-day life. There have been reports of Beelzebub appearing in homes as a large dark mass that is most active at night. Other smaller paranormal events are likely the work of his minions, but this is one demon you do not want to mess around with. After that, we have Antoine Gay. This one may not sound as terrifying as a traditional demon, but it could be even more dangerous. Antoine Gay started out life as an ordinary human being, but he is infamously known as being one of the strongest cases of demonic possession to this very day. Antoine was a Frenchman who served in the military in the 1800s before becoming a carpenter in the city of Lyon. He then decided he wanted to begin the process of becoming a monk and was accepted as a lay brother at his local abbey. Now, things took a strange turn for him, however, when he shockingly decided to leave the church due to a complete nervous disorder. His sudden mood swings and his unexplained conditions quickly started to raise concerns that he had been possessed by a demon. He was examined by priests and other religious figures who reported that Gay spoke in a much deeper tone and began to share dark secrets of his life. He also started speaking in perfect Latin without ever studying the language or having any knowledge of it. Now, religious figures named the demon that had possessed Antoine Isacaro, but not much was known about the demon or its intentions beyond its name. Antoine Gay eventually passed away in the late 1800s due to various complications that priests believe were linked to the demon who had possessed him. But nowadays there are people who are convinced that Antoine Gay is still inhabiting our world as an evil entity. There are rumors that Issaquah had passed its energy onto Antoine when he passed away, and he is now tormenting other souls all around the world. However, because of the mystery surrounding the original demon, no one is really sure how to stop it. Ouija boards are likely the easiest way to summon it, but there is no reason why anyone should even attempt to do that. Next on our list is Baphomet. This demon is another direct servant of Satan who was mentioned in texts as far back as the 11th century. He is described as a large winged beast with a goat head and a human-like body. Many paintings also show the words dissolve and coagulate tattooed on the demon's arms. Now this seems a little strange at first until you realize the main purpose of this demonic figure. Many believe that Satan had originally summoned Baphomet to destroy religion from the inside out. He would manipulate humans on Earth to carry out some evil deeds and spread the word that religion was very bad for the soul. Of course, Baphomet needed a large following of loyal servants who would help him in his quest, and he didn't have a tough time finding them. The infamous Knights Templar that existed between the 12th and 14th centuries were apparently the main followers and direct servants of Baphomet. They would supposedly carry out all sorts of anti-Catholic rituals and actions, which included spitting on the cross. While the Knights were technically a military order that was supposedly fighting alongside the Catholic Church, some believe that they were actually fighting against it. Many people started to question the Templars' faith in the early 1300s, and some were convinced that they were worshipping demons. Then in 1307, it was King Philip IV who ordered the majority of the Knights to be arrested for worshipping Baphomet. This led to the execution of many members and the complete dissolution of the order. But if you thought that spelled the end of Baphomet altogether, then you would be very, very wrong. There are many anti-religious groups that still exist today, and many believe that they are actively summoning Baphomet to carry out their orders. While many evil spirits are keen on working with this terrifying demon, others are still actively fighting to banish him forever. And finally we have Lucifer. Now this evil figure is actually a fallen angel who is now believed to be the demon of pride. Now because pride is one of the 7 deadly sins, Lucifer's actions have resulted in him being labeled a demon by many in the Catholic Church. It is said that Lucifer was actually one of God's greatest creations, and many regarded him as a true son of God. While Lucifer was gifted a throne by God himself and was placed in the Garden of Eden to enlighten humans, his own self-pride eventually got the better of him. After witnessing the creation of Adam and Eve, Lucifer was ordered to bow to the original pair of humans. But in a defiant move of power, Lucifer declared that his creation was far superior and he refused to bow to Adam and Eve. Now some believe that Lucifer was incredibly brave to rebel against his creator, but God was not interested in hearing his argument. Lucifer was banished from heaven for his actions and is regarded as the first sinner for putting his own self-pride before God. His appearance as an angel quickly transformed into a demon who convinces people to develop egos. It is believed by many in the Catholic Church and others that egotistical people are the works of Lucifer himself as he leads them to their inevitable downfall. While many demons could be considered more dangerous due to their violent natures, Lucifer could actually be the most cunning of them all. His slow and steady manipulation of a person's ego can lead to some terrible choices in life that can have irreversible consequences. The estimated number of victims who have been manipulated by Lucifer throughout history is well into the millions. Summoning this entity through a Ouija board might not have an immediate impact on a person's life, but it will slowly crush them over time. There are definitely ways to fix a person who is possessed by Lucifer, but you'd be better off just keeping him far away from any Ouija boards.
Starting off at number 5, parents. Look, let's just get this one right out of the way now, okay? Parents, y'all can be the worst sometimes. The whole myth of the boogeyman came about as a way for parents to scare their kids into acting right. Like the whole, you better behave or the boogeyman will get you thing. Absolutely the worst. Now, whenever your kid is going to sleep at night in their dark room, the house will do what houses do and settle. Or something might fall, or the wind will blow outside just a little harder than usual, and now that kid is laying in bed terrified, thinking that something is coming out of its closet or under its bed, despite that kid's best efforts to be the best behaved kid you've ever met. Congratulations, you terrified your kid, but on the other hand, nightlight sales have probably been given a bit of a boost, so hey, you scared your kid and contributed to capitalism. Round of applause for you. Number 4, Crybaby Bridge. Down in Georgia, where all kinds of creepypastas and urban legends are running amok, there's one bridge famous for its boogeyman, Crybaby Bridge. Now, there are many bridges that have picked up this name in the US, but this one stands apart. What is an unassuming rickety wooden bridge with no safety rails during the daytime is the most haunted bridge in Georgia by night. The legends say that a single mother, crying and hoping for the end, was driving one rainy night with a small passenger in the back seat. Blinded by the rain and her own distraught tears, she drove off the rickety bridge that would later become Crybaby Bridge. The water below was not horribly deep, but for a woman who didn't care for her life and the helpless one in the back, the water brought the end. Since that day, a legend arose warning against anyone who dares stop on the bridge and turn off their headlights. Who better to test out urban legends than a group of 6 bored teenagers who had read the urban legend and decided to investigate. They piled into a car and drove out to Crybaby Bridge on a dark, unlit road surrounded by dense thickets of trees and brush. The teenagers drove out onto the 30-foot bridge as it creaked and crackled under the weight of their car. All at once, they agreed to get out of the car, but as they did, something below used their movement as cover for its own. The group grew quiet, trying to bring on whatever was supposed to happen, but as they grew quiet, so did the nightlife around. No crickets, no birds, no frogs. After a moment of silence, the faint sound of a crying baby slowly began to echo from downstream. Below the bridge, something was moving, trying to slip through the water without making too much sound. Then, a figure, man-like but all out of whack, appeared at the end of the bridge. It had a huge face with little beady black eyes, a huge nose but flattened. The face was covered in thick, reddish hair, and from its mouth were the sounds of a crying baby. But as the teens shone their light on this creature, the crying stopped. Now, the 9-foot-tall creature stepped forward, a huge, muscular creature with elongated arms. As the teens recoiled in horror, another similar creature began reaching up from under the bridge, trying to get a hold on an ankle. This was a trap. What happens next? Well, you have to read the rest for yourself, sorry. Number 3, the Bye-Bye Man. Eli was a graduate student living in the town of Sun Prairie, Wisconsin in the fall of 1990 with his girlfriend Catherine and a friend named Jonathan. Someone had found an old Ouija board in an attic and for fun gave it to the 3 friends who had been living together. Just like any group of friends would, the 3 began conducting experiments with the board, seeing if this whole superstition thing was real. Turns out they had a pretty wild ride. After they believed they had communicated with a number of spirits, they decided to make an effort to contact a spirit that had actually been a living human. The board eventually transmitted the story of the Bye-Bye Man, a blind albino man born in Louisiana sometime in the 1920s. According to the story, his parents put him in an orphanage in Algiers, New Orleans, where he was shunned. The boy eventually escaped the orphanage and turned to the life of a killer. Jumping on trains and traveling around wherever he wanted, he was accompanied by his companion called Gloomsinger, which was a dog-like creature sewn together from the tongues and the eyes of his victims. Well, unfortunately, the 3 friends, Eli, Catherine, and Jonathan, were told via the Ouija board that the spirit of the Bye-Bye Man had latched onto them and that he was coming for them. Apparently, anyone who thought of or said the Bye-Bye Man's name became his next target. He then began riding the rails in their direction, sending out Gloomsinger to locate the person. Once they were found, Gloomsinger would let out a shrill whistle to call to the Bye-Bye Man. The history of the Bye-Bye Man is traced back to a teenager who told a reporter that he took his family's lives because the Bye-Bye Man made him do it. Luckily for Eli, Catherine, and Jonathan, they were not driven to hurt anyone, but they were definitely scared out of their skin. There is a movie based on this story, but in that one, things don't end so nicely. Number 2, Terry Sherman. The great thing about the Boogeyman is that it has no one form. It's just the manifestation of whatever people fear. For the Native American Navajo people, this would be the Skinwalker. Now before I get into this, everything I tell you is coming from the brief amounts of research I did when making this video, so if I get something wrong or mispronounce certain things, feel free to politely correct me in the comments below. Similar but not the same to the Russian Baba Yaga, the Skinwalker is a kind of wicked sorcerer who can transform into, occupy, or disguise themselves as an animal. It has deep roots in Aboriginal American folklore. Other tribes throughout the region also have their own versions of the Skinwalker. The Pueblo people, Apache, and Hopi people each have their own unique interpretation of what a Skinwalker might be. Some believe that Skinwalkers are produced when a medicine man abuses magic for evil, corrupting the natural order of things. turning them into an evil entity capable of controlling and turning into animals, or even possessing others. There's also another version that says that one becomes a skinwalker by performing some kind of taboo act, similar to the tale of the Wendigo. In Navajo stories, the Nagloshi were agents for the holy people when they were first training humans in the blessing way. Nagloshi were supposed to abandon the mortal world with the holy people, but a few decided to stay behind. Their greed and desire to stay in the mortal plane corrupted the power the holy people gave them and transformed them into malicious semi-divine beings. Now, I'm actually putting myself in quite a bit of danger here even talking about this, as these beings are not something you are supposed to talk about. Even the people who named this being aren't willing to talk about it, especially not with outsiders, so be courteous and don't go asking about it. Most of you have likely heard of Sherman Ranch, also known as Skinwalker Ranch. This ranch near Ballard, Utah is apparently a cursed lot of land that has had many different kinds of encounters. One is of interest to us right now. Terry Sherman, the owner of the property way back in 1996, was walking his dogs around the farm late at night when he came upon a wolf. A wolf 3 times the size of a regular one with glowing red eyes and an incredibly mean look. Terry claims to have attacked the beast, but no evidence is actually available. Was this the Navajo's boogeyman? Who knows? Number 1, Cropsey. Okay, this one is going to get a bit more real. In Staten Island, USA, a tale of a boogeyman-like creature named Cropsey was famous among many kids who lived in the area. Cropsey was said to be an axe-wielding man who escaped from a mental institution and would lurk around in the dark tunnels below the old abandoned Willowbrook State School, a facility for children with intellectual disabilities that was shuttered after allegations of horrific mistreatment were exposed. The story says Cropsey comes out at night to snatch young people and bring them back into the abandoned Willowbrook. But the horror tale was actually a horrifying reality. Cropsey was in actuality Andre Rand, a suspected killer who was convicted for the passing of 2 young individuals in the 1970s. In keeping with the tale, Rand worked as a janitor at Willowbrook in the mid-1960s. Before his capture, Rand was homeless and living in a makeshift campsite on the grounds of the abandoned school, not far from the Seaview Hospital that was so closely tied to the Cropsey legend. Rand's story and the tale of Cropsey continues to fascinate and horrify kids and even adults to this day. In fact, 2 filmmakers, Joshua Zeman and Barbara Brancaccio, grew up on Staten Island and listened to the terrifying Cropsey stories when they were children. As adults, their curiosity led them to dig deeper into the urban legend of Cropsey and the real cases of the island's missing people. They even made a documentary, Cropsey, that explores the bizarre case of the boogeyman who seemed to come to life.
Number 5, Pazuzu. Pazuzu would be a demon that would terrify Ed and Lorraine were they to deal with a case involving Pazuzu in real life. Pazuzu is an extremely powerful demon who is the main antagonist of the Exorcist series. The entity plagues Reagan McNeil, possessing her and almost fully claiming her. Even though the demon is expelled and Reagan's soul is saved, it costs the elder priest who helps her his life and Damien Karras, the younger priest, something far worse, his soul. In the newest chapter of the Exorcist franchise, it appears that Pazuzu may have grown in power, possessing not 1 but 2 girls at once. However, it's also possible that Pazuzu has made a friend or perhaps recruited a fellow demon to join them in their evil plan. But it's been implied and suggested that this is a more synchronized possession, where the demon plaguing the 2 girls, whether it is Pazuzu or it's not and is just pretending to be, can take hold of both of them at once. We'll have to wait and see if this is actually one entity and if the film marks the return of Pazuzu or not, as Exorcist Believer comes out later this month on October 27th. Pazuzu is one of my worst fears personally. When it comes to the initial Exorcist movie that Pazuzu appeared in as the demon possessing Reagan, I was terrified to watch it. I remember going to Halloween movies and us putting on scary films to watch, and for me, Exorcist was always one of the most terrifying, the one that haunted me the most after I left. This was because Pazuzu felt like such a smart and indomitable threat in the first film. This was a demon that refused to be bested even when the cavalry were called in, even when priests who had experience dealing with demonic possession were finding many of their usual tactics basically failed them. And the fact that Pazuzu does harm to its hosts, altering the way that they look, also haunted me. The idea of something living inside you that fundamentally changes you as a person, that's honestly pretty horrifying to me. I have to imagine that despite all their experience working in the field of the supernatural, Pazuzu would still shock and surprise Ed and Lorraine as well. After all, they have dealt with objects that are possessed more often than people being possessed, and not on a level like I would say what Pazuzu does to those it torments. We're talking life or death scenarios here that feel like they're completely out of your control, where people were literally willing to put their lives on the line to defeat Pazuzu because of how dangerous this demon seems.
Number 4, Behemoth. The very mention of this ancient and monstrous entity conjures images of unparalleled terror. The demonology of Ed and Lorraine Warren, renowned paranormal investigators, often delved into the darkest corners of the supernatural, but even they might have shuddered at the thought of confronting Behemoth. Okay, no, not the ride at Canada's Wonderland. I'm talking about the mythological beast that dates back to the beginning of mankind, and whose name is now an adjective, for any large or powerful being. The name Behemoth originated historically from the archaic Jewish name for hippopotamus, and is best described as a beast from the biblical book of Job. He is a form of the primeval chaos monster created by God at the beginning of creation, being paired up with other, chaos monster Leviathan, and according to later Jewish tradition, both would become food for the righteous at the end time. Hey, if I wind up qualifying as righteous, can I just have a funnel cake instead? Once again, not any kind of reference to the theme park. These beings came first, but now I'm kind of in the mood to tackle a roller coaster. In religious and mythological texts, Behemoth is a primeval force, a creature of immense power and malevolence. Its name alone evokes fear, as it's often associated with, chaos, destruction, and chaos on an apocalyptic scale. Described as a colossus monstrous being, Behemoth is often depicted as a grotesque combination of various animals, a nightmarish fusion of strength and ferocity. He is said to take the form of a colossal large elephant with pitch black eyes covered in white scales that appear to be falling off, and has teeth the size of Mount Everest. Its mere presence is said to bring about cataclysmic events, shaking the very foundations of the world. One can only imagine the sense of dread that Ed and Lorraine, who confronted numerous supernatural entities throughout their careers, might have felt in the face of such an ancient and malevolent force. Behemoth represents the embodiment of the darkest aspects of the human psyche, a symbol of the unknown and the terrifying. For the Warrens, who devoted their entire lives to investigating and combating paranormal forces, Behemoth would have been the ultimate challenge, a test of their faith and courage. It is a testament to the depths of their dedication and strength, of their convictions that they were willing to confront such formidable entities in the name of protecting others from the forces of darkness. In the realm of demonology, Behemoth stands as a symbol of the enduring power of fear and the human fascination with the unknown. Its legend serves as a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable terror, there are those who are willing to confront and challenge the forces that seek to harm humanity. As, a lot of us contemplate the legend of Behemoth and the fearless pursuit of truth by individuals like Ed and Lorraine, we are reminded that the human spirit has the capacity to confront even the most terrifying of demons, and in doing so, shed light on the mysteries of the supernatural.
Number 3, the red-faced demon Six-Tass. Probably one of the most terrifying entities to appear in the Insidious franchise. The red-faced demon is the one who takes and possesses Dalton in the first Insidious movie. While not always the main demon and supernatural threat of the franchise, I would say he's up there as he is the main antagonist of the first film and is vanquished after returning in Insidious the Red Door. What makes Six-Tass so scary is that he's an entity that resembles the devil who literally scares the mediums that Josh consults in an effort to get back his son and understand what is happening to him. Besides that, this is a demon who takes people and severely mistreats them while they're captured, while possessing them in the waking world, using their physical forms to carry out unspeakable evil acts. He also is shown shedding his skin and has extremely sharp claws, like literally spends just time off sharpening those claws. To me, there has always been something deeply upsetting about demons who can possess you and make you do horrible things in the waking world. The feeling of losing control to the point where you're forced to do things you would disagree with, all while not even being aware of really what you're doing because you're locked away in some hellish realm being tormented while not even getting to know what Six-Tass is using your body to do. All that's pretty horrifying, I'd say. I have never been a fan of possession when it comes to horror movies. I don't like possession in real life, but in movies, I'm like, that's terrifying. I don't really understand why Six-Tass comes and takes people so that they can move into the real world through them, but like many demons out there, it probably has to do with the fact that they want to feel greater than they are. They enjoy causing harm to others and feeling like they exist on the physical plane. It gives them a sense of control. I feel like many demons, like people, just want to be seen, and so they kind of lash out. But then again, demons like Six-Tass are also frightening because, unlike people, they can't really be reasoned with. Ed and Lorraine could even end up taken by Six-Tass themselves if they attempted to come after the demon for the harm they had caused the Lamberts. In Insidious, it seems like no one really wants to have to deal with this demon, even those that are tasked with the job of doing so as experts, which I get. I don't think I'd even be able to accept or consider a job like that it's honestly so frightening.
Number 2, Bellet, a king of Down Under. No, not Australia, you comedians. Hell. Out of today's entire list, he probably commands the most demons out of anybody. Ready for this? 85 leagues. Personally, I wouldn't be able to handle that kind of responsibility. I'm barely able to command my own life as it is. He tends to go by a couple of different names though, such as Bellet, Beleth, Byleth, and Billeth. Very fond of alliteration, I see. When summoned, he originally appears as a terrifying dark knight on a horse. He is accompanied by a cacophony of music, and presents himself as scary as possible to test the conjurer. If the summoner is not deemed courageous, yeah, you're in for a lot of problems. Also, and once again, do not summon demons, but if he decides you are strong enough, he'll be kind to you. But only if the conjurer is holding a hazel wand and draws the summoning triangle to the south, to the east, and upwards. He's also pretty judgy, so if you look like a slob, all bets are off. While summoning him, one must wear a silver ring on the middle finger of the left hand to protect themselves from his fire-breathing abilities. Speaking of that fiery stuff, his overall abilities include the capability to throw fireballs and hellish explosions from his hands and mouth that can incinerate angels and can create large crimson fire dragon heads, which on impact can incinerate or explode any opponent. Oh, the pyromaniacs out there want more. Who am I to deny? So Beleth has tried his dang best to emulate holy fire and couldn't recreate it perfectly, but has instead created a light yellow fire that manifests itself from the tendrils in the hands and forearms that pierce and burn any target, but keep a soul trapped in black crystals made with the ash that he can keep as a souvenir. Oh, and he can release needles from his hands with the same effects. By the way, any results from this power are irreversible, unless you want to turn into Mr. or Mrs. Big Pile of Dust. I'd recommend avoiding that. He can also fire laser-like fire beams from his hands that are even more powerful than Hellfire, that can and will incinerate anything in its path. Definitely a Leo. Too much fire not to be. Oh, almost forgot. He is able to create weapons such as swords, daggers, spears, needles, and blades in his hands. All that fire and the ability to create weapons? No thanks. I can't imagine Ed and Lorraine wanting to go anywhere near someone that can impale you with needles from your hands. And so much fire.
Number 1, the Black Demon. This is the demon featured in the movie of the same name. In this story, the Black Demon is an agent of Tlaloc, an ancient Aztec and Mayan god that some other religions have classified as a demon as well. The Black Demon in the movie comes in the form of a giant shark, similar to a megalodon in appearance and size. One of the explanations that is posed in the film as to why this creature is here and what it's doing suggests that the Black Demon was actually sent by Tlaloc to attack as a result of negligence when it came to an oil rig out on the ocean whose company had basically done nothing to investigate or mitigate oil spills. If I were Tlaloc, I would probably be pissed too and send out the Black Demon to take revenge on humanity for all their greed and all the harm they've done to both the sea and the land. Needless to say, were Ed and Lorraine adrift on a dinghy out in the ocean and confronted by the Black Demon, I feel like it would be a pretty terrifying experience for them, despite their demonology experience. I mean, demons that can't be seen, but whose presence can be felt, who exist on another plane of existence, that's one thing. A demon who is literally a giant megalodon that exists in the real physical world is entirely another. We aren't just talking about being chased by ghosts here, we're talking about being hunted by a believed, mythical, but it apparently turns out real beast that exists beneath the ocean's surface. I think the other thing that has always frightened me about sharks is that they're straight up predators who exist in a world that we aren't really meant to occupy. The ocean is a deep and dark and mysterious place, and as much as I love swimming in the ocean and being in water in general, when we're in there we're completely out of our element. Unless I guess you have equipment, and even if you do sometimes, you aren't really prepared to be underwater for long periods. You can't move as easily, you can't see as easily where you're going, it's just frightening. And I feel like that is what gets me. You're fighting something that is in its element while you're out of yours. Add in the fact now this isn't just any old shark, but basically a megalodon who also has ties to the spiritual world with its connection to Tlaloc, and yeah, that is honestly some scary stuff.
Number 5, the Legion. Now maybe this is a cheat to start off this list because this is technically supposed to be a top 5 list, but I think including this one might make it a top 500,000 list, roughly. This next demon is known as Legion, for it is many. The Legion's first appearance comes to us from the Gospel of Mark. That's a very early issue, so if you still have that, hold on to it, collector's value. Wherein Jesus Christ was wandering, encountering a young man who seemed to be possessed by a demon. When Jesus spoke to the man, he asked for the name of the demon inside him so he could exorcise him properly. And the demon spoke back and answered saying, "Legion, for there were many devils inside him. As with any demon, this demon was driving its host to behave like an animal, trying to compel the man to sin, acting violently and aggressive. Now, JC exorcised the demon, and upon being exorcised, asked if it could be transferred to a herd of pigs to live out its demony days, to which Big JC obliged. Now, the Legion is pretty atypical when it comes to demons. It's not the prince of anything, or the embodiment of any one sin. The Legion, as the name might imply, is made up of countless individual little demons, all living inside one person like a big demon jamboree. There'd be so many demons inside you, there wouldn't even be any room for you. The Legion works like a demony hive mind, all moving together in unison. Sometimes Satan's armies are referred to as the legions of hell, but I guess the Legion is its own thing, which must make labeling pretty confusing. No one's exactly sure what sort of demons the Legion are, just that there's a lot of them working together in blissful demon harmony. As well, no one can really determine what the Legion is supposed to look like, but just know if you've ever seen a horde of literally anything, most likely would look like that, and not particularly pleasant. One demon is bad enough, let alone a couple 100,000 all in one place. That's just too many demons per square mile, square inch, square whatever measurement. Too many demons. And if you're looking for way more demons, if that's not enough demons for you, well, we've got stories of all kinds of horned beasts and snake-headed monsters and winged terrors on Top 5 Scary for you, and then some. If demons aren't your jam, we got ghosts, we got ghouls, we got goblins, we got conspiracies, we got anything scary you can think of. Hit subscribe, hit that little bell as well, and don't miss a single scream. But do that at the end of this video, because I got 4 more demons coming up for you right now. Number 4, Belphegor. A demon who's had his heyday in pop culture. Maybe you recognize Belphegor from Supernatural's first fledgling season, all the way back when the boys were wide-eyed and hadn't even died once yet. Or maybe you're a big JRPG fan, maybe you're a Persona fan, and you recognize Belphegor as the perpetually bored demon on the can. And if you're like me, and you never stopped to ask why this enemy in a video game was a demon that was sitting on the toilet, maybe you just figured, hey, it's a video game, there's a talking cat, there's a dream world, you play as a teenager who has a healthy sleep schedule and a healthy social circle, it's not a realistic game, maybe you didn't think about it. But there's a reason for this foul demon's appearance. He's one of the 7 princes of hell, the demonic icon of sloth, and his favorite offering isn't blood, or a fresh goat, but a little mud pie. Feces, if you want to get technical. I'm not going to judge, and I'm not going to ask what he's doing with it. Old lore has it that if you wanted to summon Belphegor, you just had to bring him a lot of feces. There's no metric volume ever listed, just a lot. If you do summon him, he'll trade you wondrous riches, expand your ability to discover new things, but at the cost of the temptation of your mortal soul, and also you'll probably never have clean hands again. I'm sorry, I don't usually work so blue. It's the lazy man's comedy, although perhaps that's fitting for the demon prince of sloth. Now, Belphegor has been depicted in all manner of ways over the years. Sometimes he appears as these esoteric things like tree branches, or takes the form of beautiful women. But one wood carving in the 18th century of him sitting on an 18th century toilet sealed his fate forever, and since then he has always been depicted as a horned demon on a porcelain throne. Belphegor, if you're watching this video, I want to make something clear. I'm not making fun of you. I'm just trying to make sense of this. What are you doing with that stuff? Where is it going? What are you doing with it? Number 3, Mammon. Hey, look, there's nothing wrong with wanting a little bit, right? It's nice to want, you know, we all want things. A little money, a little power, you know? Now, for most of us who weren't born into a Fortune 500 lineage, might be a little bit tricky, unless you've got a little bit of help. Maybe like from Mammon, the embodiment of human greed. You know, he's actually a lot more generous than his position as greed demon might suggest, you know? If you give over your eternal soul and pledge yourself to an eternity in his service, he might reward you with great riches. That's a pretty solid transaction. Mammon is thought to originate from an ancient word for wealth, and it's thought that this is where Mammon was first born from, was mankind's inherent desire for wealth and greed twisted out of subconscious want. Curse us for wanting. The Gospel of Luke and Matthew both directly quote, "You cannot serve both God and Mammon," meaning you can't have a pious life on a quest for massive wealth, and taken literally later to mean you can't also serve one of the 7 princes of hell and worship God, that kind of makes sense. Mammon is greedy, real greedy. It's said of all the archdukes and princes of hell, Mammon is more concerned with staring at the gold pavement than any of Lucifer's rebellion or business of the heavens, taken to mean that Mammon does not concern himself with anything that doesn't involve cold hard coin, baby. He's on that grind set 24/7. He's out there getting demon bags. Racks on racks on racks on racks. Now the demon of greed has taken many forms over the years, most often looking like a fairly normal human sitting on a big golden throne looking down on those who would call for him. He's also been associated with a wolf and is believed to be able to take the form of one for dealing on Earth. It's said that part of the arcane ritual to evoke Mammon is to imagine your spirit as a golden wolf calling out to him. Now, if you do invoke Mammon, a little advice from me, just be sure you're being reasonable about this. You never know what happens if you get too greedy with a demon. Number 2, Beelzebub. Okay, the rest of these demons been small fries. Now we're getting into the big hitters. Beelzebub is thought to be one of the first angels to have ever fallen to hell, alongside Leviathan and Lucifer himself. He and Lucifer actually have a bit of an identity crisis, as the two are sometimes thought to be interchangeable. They got like similar haircuts, I think. Some demonologists, and yeah, there are people who call themselves demonologists, argue Beelzebub is another name for Lucifer. Some pose he's one of his most trusted lieutenants. No one can agree, but whatever he is pretty scary. His history is fairly interesting. It's thought that his namesake is a mockery of the ancient god Baal, a Bronze Age god of fertility. Some scholars believe Beelzebub's name comes from Beelzebub, meaning Lord of the Flies, inferring that the followers of Baal are nothing more than flies worshipping a dung god. The Lord of the Flies sort of ended up becoming Beelzebub's de facto title, with almost all depictions of him featuring flies in ubiquitous amounts. Occasionally, he's even depicted as a giant fly. It's very Kafkaesque. Beelzebub is said to be one of the most powerful demons inside of Hell's domain, capable of great and control over humanity. Beelzebub was cited during the Salem witch trials as the entity that had corrupted and swayed so many women to witchery, so we have him to thank for goth girls, I guess. There's a bit of a discrepancy as to what sin Beelzebub is thought to preside over, with some offerings saying pride and some saying gluttony, but more often gluttony, which I think seems a little more fitting for flies anyway. I've never met a particularly proud fly. And number 1, Asmodeus. Now yes, it probably would have made a lot of sense to have Lucifer or Satan as the number 1 spot on this list. I mean, king of hell and all that. Let's give him an honorable mention. Let's give him a little clap. Let's give him a little equal attention. Yay, Satan. Hail Satan and all that. You're a great guy. Yeah. And let's say he's the number 0 spot, just because I thought it was a little too obvious, and I'm pretty sure most of you know who Satan is. And there's other demons to talk about. You know, I'm all about glowing up underrated demons, some of that, hidden talent. So filling in at the number 1 spot is Asmodeus, one of the princes of hell and the embodiment of the cardinal sin of lust. It's one of the best sins there is. Asmodeus fell from heaven along the other fallen angels, reforming as a prince of hell. Asmodeus is said to have been married to Lilith, the primordial she-demon, famed for her banishing from the Garden of Eden and for destroying Fraser Crane's life. Lilith was cursed and banished for her defilement and depicted as a temptress, and Asmodeus was like, I'm super into that stuff, Lilith. You want to procreate an endless stream of demons into the world and reign over a dominion of chaos? And the rest is wedded bliss. Now, depictions of Asmodeus vary pretty wildly. Occasionally he's a handsome fella, but most commonly he's depicted as a squat, vaguely humanoid creature with rooster legs, tail of a snake, 3 heads, a bull, a goat, and a scruffy demon head as the center. Asmodeus presides over lust with the help of his beloved Lilith. The two tempt humans with madness and desire to ruin people with lechery. Apparently this wasn't enough for him, as some stories also described Asmodeus as having command over the betting halls of hell and is responsible for tempting men's souls towards gambling. So what I'm hearing is that Asmodeus is in charge of lust and gambling, so he probably parties harder than absolutely anybody in hell. I don't know, sounds kind of cool. That's why he's at the number 1 spot today.
In 5th place, we have Horus, a Duke of Hell. Granted, he also goes by Floros, Flavros, Horas, or Havres, depending on who you ask. He is a great duke, ruling over 36 legions of spirits, and most commonly appears as a large leopard with a human face and evil eyes. In his human form, he has been known to appear as a male figure with red liquid eyes, body ablaze with flame and other scary features, but also as a tall female figure and that is slender and flame with flowing red hair. If that appeared in front of me, I'd probably be a little tempted too. Horus tends to be a demon a lot of folks try to summon due to his abilities to answer queries about the past, present, and future, which I know it's tempting. I too would love to know if I'll ever be able to afford to buy a home in this economy, but it's not worth the risk. Ooh, he's able to burn and destroy my enemies? Okay, maybe just like a little summoning just once as a treat. Just like a little list. 2 people. Okay, no, I know better. I don't want to be a bad influence. No demon summoning. When summoning him, if one does not follow the steps to the letter, so specifically invoking the magical triangle properly, he will take every opportunity to trick and lie to whoever is susceptible. He's also a very jealous demon, and not only does he not play well with others, he can be called upon to inflict vengeance on other demons. No, I'm not going to tell you how to summon him. No. Also, for the horoscope girlies like myself, he's a Capricorn. In 4th place, we have Bael, a Duke of Hell. Sure, he only rules like 10 legions of spirits, but you'll see why in a minute. He's a bit of a busy guy. Something I know I can personally relate to. I swear I don't have a social life anymore. Going also by the monikers of Malifar, and Valifar, he is known to appear as a lion with the head of a man, or as a lion with the head of a donkey. Okay, Midsummer's Night Dream, getting those vibes. He is also depicted as being utterly monstrous, with multiple lion limbs, a mighty mouth with a second one underneath, the ears of a donkey, and a devilish tail. No, he's not a Leo, but good guess. He tempts people to steal and is in charge of a good relationship among thieves. Balefar is considered a good familiar by his associates until they get caught in his trap. That's the thing with these demons. Sure, they'll tempt you with what you think you need or what you desire that's impossible for a reason, but I've never heard of a demon acting out of the goodness of their heart. Seriously, have you? They have needs as well, and those include playing with humans like we're their own personal little chess set. And sadly, we'd be only pawns in that game. No powerful queens here. Or so you could think. A goal of his is to collect human greed and manifest it as glittering treasure, while he teaches loyalty and the art of manipulation. Other demons refer to him as a tricky a-hole, so do with that information what you will. Most demons tend to show up, do what's needed, and then buzz off to wherever they need to go next. But Balefar will join you on whatever adventures you go on, even after the original summoning. But you should be careful, because if you're not smart enough or you're a bad sorcerer, he's gonna trick you as well. I'm not shocked. You shouldn't be shocked. He's able to manipulate angels and wizards to commit crimes and steal secrets for his own benefit, and he can use hellfire to dazzle the enemy with blinding explosions or to attack and defend himself. So while watching whoever he perceives as an enemy, he can use combustion to end someone by making them burn alive and create a wall of hellfire on command. Funny enough, he's a Taurus, so happy birthday, you stubborn demonic thing. No, you are not invited to any birthday parties. In 3rd place, we have Vine, an Earl and King of Hell. History isn't quite sure if he rules over 19 or 36 legions of beings, which is pretty dang scary to think about. I'd love a fact check down in the comments if anyone considers themselves more of, an expert. The significance of his name seems to be from the Latin word vinea, vine, which is also the name given to an ancient war machine made of wood and covered with leather and branches used to overthrow walls. In terms of his appearance, once summoned, he will show up resembling a lion and holding a viper in his hands. No, I don't do snakes. If requested to change that appearance, he'll present in human form with long black hair, black wings, and now holding a golden cane. Okay, I know there's some people out there who might be attracted to this, visually, guilty, but don't take that as encouragement to summon him. A pretty face is not worth it. Trust me. Known as one of the most difficult demons to summon and work with, he's also one of the only demons who can identify witches and warlocks without being previously informed about their abilities, along with having the ability to tell the past and future. Vine is insensitive to humanity and cares very little for harming those who summon him, making him wildly unpredictable and dangerous to summon, along with having the power to take souls without requiring permission. In terms of abilities, Vine can create or summon hellstorms that fire lightning bolts that will explode or incinerate an intended target. The storms will literally track down the target until the goal is accomplished. He can also create or summon hellfire rains that have the ability to burn a human alive and incinerate them, and they're going to follow that target until their job is done. Oh, and not just humans. He can manipulate hellfire that's capable of incinerating gods, archons, djinns, and titans. Of course, he's a dang Gemini with, the appearance changing and all. I love my Geminis in my life, but a stereotype is only a stereotype when it's true. In 2nd place, we have Bellet, the king of Down Under. No, not Australia, you comedians. Hell. Out of today's entire list, he probably commands the most demons. Ready for this? 85 leagues. Personally, I wouldn't be able to handle that kind of responsibility. I'm barely able to command my own life as it is. Similar to Horez, he also goes by a couple of different names, such as Bellet, Beleth, Byleth, and Billeth. Very fond of alliteration, I see. When summoned, he originally appears as a terrifying dark knight on a horse, is accompanied by a cacophony of music, and presents himself as scary as possible to test the conjurer. If the summoner is not deemed courageous, bad times would be ahead for whatever poor soul tried. Also, and once again, do not summon, but if he decides you are strong enough, he'll be kind to you, but only if the conjurer is holding a hazel wand and draws the summoning triangle to the south, east, and upwards. He's also pretty judgy, so if you look like a slob, all bets are off. Yeah, I feel like I'm out here. While summoning him, one must wear a silver ring on the middle finger of the left hand to protect themselves from his fire-breathing abilities. Speaking of that fiery stuff, his overall abilities include the capability to throw fireballs and hellish explosions from his hand and mouth that can incinerate angels and can create large crimson fire dragon heads, which on impact can, incinerate or explode any opponent. Oh, the pyromaniacs out there want more. Who am I to deny? So Beleth has tried his dang best to emulate holy fire and couldn't recreate it perfectly, but has instead created a light yellow fire that manifests itself from tendrils in the hands and forearms that pierce and burn any target, but keep a soul trapped in the black crystals made with the ash that he can keep as a souvenir. Oh, and he can shoot needles from his hands with the same effects. By the way, any results from this power are irreversible, so unless you want to turn into, Mr. or Mrs. Big Pile of Dust, I'd recommend avoiding that. He can also fire laser-like beams from his hands that are even more powerful than Hellfire, that can and will incinerate anything in its path. Yeah, definitely a Leo. Too much fire not to be. Oh, almost forgot. He's able to create weapons such as swords, daggers, spears, needles, and create blades in his hands. All that fire and the ability to create weapons? No thanks. In first place, we have Bael, one of the kings of hell. He is the most powerful demon on our list today and commands a grand total of 66 legions of beings. As a treat, because it's first place, I'll do the math for this one. You folks ready for this? He commands anywhere between 198 to 396,000 demons, which is roughly the size of a small city. He is a fallen angel turned demon with the power to make men invisible, and I just shuddered mentally thinking about that. Visually, he's horrific, so I can understand why he would want to be, invisible. Let me guess. You want all the details, right? If I get nightmares tonight, I'm blaming it on this. When summoned, he appears as a creepy monster with 3 heads, one of a frog, another of a cat, and the third is of an older man with pale eyes and strange ears. Oh, that's not scary enough. Okay. So instead of human legs, he has a dozen spider legs. I don't usually describe myself as an arachnophobe, but this visual is terrifying. No thanks! I'll stick to thinking about pretty unicorns and Disney characters so I can maybe get this thing called sleep tonight. Not super familiar with the concept, but I've heard it's a good time. Symbolically, the spider legs represent an ancient symbol of hard work and creation, but also cruelty, greed, and cunning. The frog head is representative of a new beginning and physical wealth, while the cat head is for mental wealth and security. Bael is the lord of storms, winds, and rains, and I'd appreciate it if he could stop with that these days. He's been described as communicating with a very hoarse voice, and it's rude that there are no accounts of anyone offering him a cup of tea during a summoning. If you're listening, almighty demon, I'd highly recommend a honey citrus mint concoction to see if that helps. His special skills include demonic projectiles, which is the ability to mold his power of destruction into many highly mobile spheres capable of eliminating things without a trace and bypasses target's defenses, resulting in apparently minimal damage to the surrounding environment. How, considerate of him? From specifically his human head, he can spew out large amounts of wave-like or tsunami-like magma that can completely eliminate armies and can spit myriads of magma balls that hit many targets individually. From his cat head, he can fire beams that will combust or end anyone. I promise I'm not writing a video game character here, even though he kinda sounds like it. From specifically the frog's head, he has a prehensile tongue that can reach out and catch fleeing opponents and devour them. Oh, and he can vaporize angels.
Number 5. The Incubus. One of the more taboo evil demons on this list is the Incubus, the male equivalent to a succubus. While a succubus is known for seducing sleeping men in order to impregnate themselves with ghostly children, the incubus comes into a woman's bed while she is asleep and impregnates her. She then carries the baby to term, giving birth to deformed witches, wizards, or demons. Not all of these offspring become evil, however, with the first legend of a wizard being fathered by an incubus actually being the legendary wizard who served King Arthur during the days of Camelot, Merlin. In the late 1400s, demonology text Malleus Maleficarum by the German Catholic clergyman Heinrich Kramer The author talks about incubi and states that there are 5 ways to get rid of them: moving the afflicted woman to a different location, exorcism, sacramental confession, the sign of the cross, or excommunication of the attacking entity, which even the book itself admits is basically just another term for exorcism. If we are to believe Kramer's account, then incubi seem to be relatively easy demons to get rid of, being subject to all the usual tricks of the exorcist trade, and being able to be shaken by simply moving. But according to the works of the Franciscan friar Ludovico Maria Sinistari, they are much more difficult to deal with than the typical demon, with him saying that an incubus does not obey exorcists. They have no dread of exorcisms, show no reverence for holy things, and at the approach of which they are not in the least overawed. If this is true, then getting rid of an incubus could be a deeply traumatic and maybe even impossible task. Because we do not know which description of their strengths and weaknesses is the more accurate one, it is probably best to simply avoid any situations or rituals that could result in the summoning of an incubus, no matter how long of a dry spell you are dealing with, or how desperate you are becoming. Number 4. Mephistopheles. Mephistopheles, or Mephisto to his friends, is a demon who features prominently in German folklore. Although he has since become somewhat of a stock character, he is primarily known for the role he plays in the Faust legend. The Faust legend is inspired by the life of a real alchemist, astrologer, and magician named Johann Georg Faust, who lived in Germany during the late 1400s and early 1500s. It is unclear how closely Faust's life follows the legend it inspired, but the tale of his interactions with Mephistopheles have been passed down for centuries after his death. In the folk legend, Faust has become depressed with his life as a scholar and tries to take his own life. When the attempt fails, he calls on the devil, hoping to acquire magical powers that will allow him to indulge in all the earthly pleasures he can imagine. The devil then sends his representative, Mephistopheles, to make a deal with Faust. Faust and the demon broker a deal that will make Mephistopheles serve Faust with his powers for a set number of years. When that time is up, Mephisto will claim his soul and take Faust to hell, where he will be punished and forced to serve Satan for all of eternity. Faust uses Mephistopheles for a variety of purposes over the years, most famously to help him seduce a beautiful young maiden named Gretchen, with whom he has a child. When the child is born, Gretchen realizes the baby's unholy nature and throws the child into the waters, causing her to be arrested and executed for murder. Faust is corrupted and realizes his sins are unforgivable, and he is carried away to hell by Mephistopheles. True or not, the Faust legend has become deeply ingrained in culture, and despite the initial benefits Mephistopheles may present you with, he is not worth summoning. Number 3. The Popobawa. The Popobawa is one of the more recent demonic creatures on this list, with its first sightings being in 1965. The Popobawa is a Zanzibar legend, whose name literally translates to bat wings. This name is not a description of the creature's actual physical form, but rather a description of the large dark shadow that it casts during its attacks. Sightings of the creature have been reported periodically throughout the years in Zanzibar, with stories from the 70s, 80s, and reaching their peak in 1995, before taking a 5-year hiatus, and then being seen again in 2000 and 2007. One of the most popular explanations for this demonic creature is that a sheik man released a jinn in order to get revenge against his neighbors, but soon lost control of the jinn, who took to demonic ways. The Popobawa is described as a shapeshifter who takes many different forms, often switching from humanoid to animalistic shapes. It is known for being accompanied by a sulfuric odor, and it tends to visit homesteads at night and on rare occasions during the day. It is indiscriminate in its choice of victims, going from home to home and attacking all members of the family before engaging in physical attacks, poltergeist behavior, and most feared of all, forced sodomy. It then moves on to the next home in the community. Victims of Popobawa attacks are often encouraged to come forward with their story in order to get the community protection, in order to avoid repeat visits from the demonic creature. The creature apparently becomes enraged if their existence is denied, and during one incident in 1971 possessed a young girl who then spoke to a group of villagers in a deep man's voice to confirm its existence. If the Popobawa really does exist and attacks the people of Zanzibar, then he should obviously be avoided at all costs, as his style of attack would be not only painful and humiliating, but could have long-term effects on the sanity of his victims if he chose to return to make his attacks a consistent issue. This is one demonic force that there is no benefit to tangling with, and should be avoided as much as possible, for both your own sake and that of everyone in your community. Number 2. Any of the demons in the Lesser Key of Solomon. The Lesser Key of Solomon is a grimoire compiled in the 17th century from materials that were already centuries old at the time of the book's original publication. The volume is divided into 5 books, and one of which contains instructions on how to grant the practicing magician an eidetic memory and the ability to instantly learn materials. Another of the books teaches the user how to contact angels using a wax tablet and a method known as scrying. 2 of the other books describe the 24 different angels and their relation to the 24 hours in the day, and the 360 spirits of the degrees of the zodiac. However, the Lesser Key's most famous book is known as Ars Godia, which contains 72 sigils, each representing a different demon, as well as instructions on how to summon the 72 demons, and even how to control them. Before you go searching for a copy at Barnes & Noble, consider the following. The Lesser Key of Solomon is apparently a cursed book, with anyone who owns a copy of it reportedly being subject to constant bad luck, or in some cases even death. Some owners of the book have reported seeing the pages turning by themselves and even flying across the room, while hearing whispers and seeing dark shadow people. If this warning has reached you too late and you have already fallen victim to this horrible curse, the good news is that it can apparently be broken by burning all the pages and disposing of the ashes. No one knows for sure who wrote the Lesser Key of Solomon. Some of course believe that it was written by King Solomon himself as a gift for his son, but others believe that it was actually dictated by some of the 72 demons in order to give themselves a means of crossing over to our world. Whoever actually wrote it, I hope that it was done with the purpose of helping us control the dark forces that are knocking on the door of reality, and not the other way around. As there is no way to know for sure who is responsible for this demonic grimoire, the smart move would probably be to avoid the book, and avoid using it, and summoning forces beyond your understanding or control, who wish to claim your soul for their own. Number 1. Master Leonard. Who would have thought that someone named Leonard could be frightening? And yet here we are. Leonard is one of the spirits or demons featured in the 1818 demonology text, the Dictionnaire Infernal, by Jacques Collin, which describes various demons as well as their hierarchies. Leonard is described as a 3-horned goat with the face of a man who uses his horns to initiate his followers and grant them satanic powers. His job title is Grand Master of the Nocturnal Orgies of Demons, which is undeniably an impressive job title. He is known for having banquets thrown in his honor by his followers, where they all consume the flesh of a stillborn goat, which is then eaten without salt and boiled with reptiles in order to depurify the sinless meat. He also has a habit of transforming into a handsome young soldier and luring young women into the wilderness, where he will impregnate them, with all the resulting children being stillborn as an offering to sin. Male followers of Leonard are granted the ability to transform into monstrous animals, or even into the incubi, which we already detailed. What makes Leonard so frightening isn't just his ability to corrupt people, but the idea that his actions directly lead to more demonic creatures that we are unable to effectively fight being created.
Number 5. A gnome? Is a gnome a demon? I don't know. I find most gnomes benevolent, actually, but they could be. Our next clip looks like something out of the start of a low-budget horror movie, bit of an A24 vibe. I started watching this clip, and then as soon as it got going, I literally pressed my nose to my computer screen, so I hope you do the same. The clip was posted to the subreddit r/humanoid encounters. I definitely recommend it if you're into this sort of thing. There's a lot of really good humanoid encounters on there. And the poster explained that this has happened to their relatives, but they don't know what's going on. What we can see in the clip is bizarre. Someone is outside on their front porch, shining a light into the darkness, trying to find what is stalking them on their property. It can be a little hard to see, but behind the big rock, we see what looks like teeny tiny little hands peering out, trying not to be seen, playing a little game of know me hide and seek. Now, it can be hard to make out what exactly is going on in this clip, but it almost seems too like there might be more than one of those little creepy crawlers wiggling around back there. Now, the original poster suggested that these creatures are indigenous folklore of little people, which I think this is pretty interesting. Is a myth that is almost ubiquitous across the globe. Pretty much every people's, Ireland, Greece, the Philippines, New Zealand, Indonesia, and so many more all have stories of gnomes or elves or little mischievous people creeping about in the night. I just find it interesting that the whole planet all has that myth. Are they all wrong, or are gnomes real? Now, to put on our Scully hat for a second, get a little dowdy, this could extremely easily be somebody playing along for a prank, or someone just hiding behind a rock playing with a doll, poking it out. The only evidence we have that this is a gnome is OP's word that they swear this is a close family member and they wouldn't do this sort of thing. And you can go through the YouTube channel, you see it's mostly just family videos, so that does make sense. So I toss it over to you, my beloved YouTube commenter gang. You guys keep me young. I love those comments. Little people creeping around, or is this just a tall tale? Woof. I spent all night working on that pun. And if you're looking for more videos of ghosts and goblins and gnomes with this guy talking over them, I've got lots of that for you on our channel. Hit subscribe so you don't miss any of it. Make sure you ring that bell so you doubly don't miss any of it. But if you really cared about me, no, I'm not saying you do. You do it at the end of this video so you can watch all the other demons caught on camera first, because I got 4 more coming. Number 4, Dogman. Coming up next is this clip that was making the rounds around the spookier sides of the internet of an Instagram user going live. The user was complaining that he'd seen something strange earlier in the day, referring to a Dogman that he thought he had seen. Now, that is different from a werewolf. A Dogman is a fairly popular cryptid that gets mentioned every now and again, kind of like a Goatman or a Mothman deal. It's like a bipedal wolf, but it's not a werewolf, okay? If you think it's a werewolf, that's a different thing. Anyway, this guy was talking on live and heard something strange outside and went to go check. Let's go with him and let's go watch the clip. Now, we can roll it again if you didn't see it, but at around a minute into the clip, when the user going live hears something strange and goes in to check on what it was, we see something rush by, if only for a second, that does not look like it's from this world at all. Looks like a tall creature running by on its hind legs. And I know it does give off a werewolfy vibe. I get it. It looks like a werewolf. I get it. But it's a Dogman. It's totally different. I don't have the time to explain the difference, but a Dogman and a werewolf are totally different. Now, here's the thing. Either this video is one of the best fakes I've ever seen, and I watch a ton of supernatural videos, so I like to think I got an eye for it. It's got a great budget and actor who really knows how to sell a scare, or this is something that actually happened to a real terrified guy. It being on Instagram Live gives it a little bit more credibility, It's harder to fake things in camera on live. It doesn't really seem like someone in a costume. It just looks like it was a Dogman caught on camera. Okay, so realist, Scully mode. I don't know if I have one. Molder mode, that's a Dogman. That's a Dogman all the way down. Why don't you all let me know down below what we think is going on down there, and also if you have some insight on the werewolf Dogman debate, lend a hand. I'm fighting a losing battle here. Number 3, strange things in Montana. Montana is sometimes called the treasure state. All the gold and silver that have been uncovered there, and also for lesser reasons for all the wild cryptid stories that come out of it. For seekers of the supernatural, Montana is a treasure trove, a real treasure state. Now, Deer Lodge is a city in Montana, and it's purported to be a hotbed of supernatural occurrences. Rumored to be home to creatures that defy classification and scientific convention and avoid the trail cams. until recently. A local rancher from Deer Lodge caught something bizarre on his land when something tripped the motion sensor on his trail camera. Now the black and white footage shows a blindingly bright glowing humanoid with what looks like an oversized and oblong head walking bizarrely in front of the camera. My first thought is that Simpsons episode has Mulder and Scully guest starring. The Simpsons episode with Mulder and Scully where Mr. Burns is glowing green through the woods. That's what I'm thinking of when I see this. Now this trail cam was miles away from any roads or trails, so there shouldn't be anybody creeping around. But there is. The rancher returned to the site of the photo and stood in the same spot and tried to mimic the composition of what he saw. When he posed himself against and compared the other image, he came out looking pretty human, compared to the sort of odd alien proportions of the glowing being, which also happened to be devoid of any features. So what was it? Now some believe it to be extraterrestrial life, popular. The show Ancient Aliens, the most reputable name in alien news, took the trail camera footage to analyze for authentication. No alterations, manipulations, inconsistencies were discovered of any kind. Well, I don't know what's going on in there. Others wondered if perhaps the creature could be a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch or maybe even some other manner of currently undiscovered or unknown cryptid we don't even know about. This could be a first contact scenario. So what do you think was caught on this trail cam? An alien? A Sasquatch? Something dreadfully normal? We may never know, but it's fun to theorize. Number 2. The Sadako trampoline. Have you ever seen The Ring? Or perhaps the original, Ringu? Probably not, because if you saw The Ring, you would have died roughly 7 days after that, and then you wouldn't be able to watch all of these lovely videos on Top 5 Scary, and I'd miss you too much. The Japanese original is one of my favorite horror movies ever, which you probably notice if you watch this channel a lot, because I crowbar references in to Sadako roughly 3 times a week in these videos. Not my fault, she's the definitive ghost girl. Love her in Dead by Daylight, big fan of her. I can't think of many things I've seen in my life half as creepy as that image of Sadako stretching herself out of the TV into the real world, the greasy, long, stringy black hair over her pallid face. Oh, well, exactly for what happens in this next clip, which is just as terrifying. Take a look. At first, it seems like someone filming some summer fun, until you get a better look at what appears to be a figure clad all in white, crawling out from under the trampoline, looking a lot like Sadako crawling out of that TV. Definitely has me scratching my head watching over again. Now, not everyone is as convinced as your easily convinced crypt keeper. One commenter on the video attempted to debunk it as a fake, lending a little bit of insight as a video editor. They said, "I'll guess that the ghost figure is a clip of someone standing up, which has been motion tracked and composited in with blurring and opacity. If the shot was stabilized, like I'm guessing it was, this would be fairly straightforward and easy. The camera shake could be added in digitally after the motion tracking is done to really sell the shot. I noticed a blur on what looks like the ghost's back as it stands up, and the jumper's leg passes over the figure, and this blur is whipped away. The clip stops as the figure is moving above the black netting, which is being used to conceal any editing artifacts." Well, okay, so it sounds like they know a lot about video editing, infinitely more than I do, and that's all well and reasonable, but could also be a ghost. Who's faking ghost videos? That's too much time in the day to be faking ghost videos. Number 1. The Jersey Devil. The infamous Jersey Devil is said to haunt the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. There are a ton of spins and variations on its origins, and if you're really curious, search Jersey Devil on our channel, nobody else's, okay? Don't need anybody else taking all those views. There's tons and tons of stories about it, but one of the most famous variations is that at a place called Leeds Point, during a thunderstorm in 1735, a Quaker woman gave birth. As the room flickered with light, the wind howled, and the poor mother who'd already raised 12 infants gave birth to the 13th. Now, some say the 13th was cursed by the devil. Some say she cursed it herself. But the story goes that this 13th child would not emerge normal, but with winged shoulders, a horse's head, cloven feet, and a wretched tail. It would soar out into the night, casting itself in the annals of folklore as the Jersey Devil. Now, over the years, there have been tons of sightings of the alleged Jersey Devil. At one point during the early 20th century, sightings would get posted in the hundreds in local newspapers. Now, our local newspapers don't reference cryptids as much as they used to. I'd like us to get back to that. But what we do have is TikTok capturing it, the modern day newspaper. Take a look at this wild footage that has been going viral across TikTok and Instagram. We see the horrific creature perched, and yeah, I'm not in the business of patronizing you. This is a CGI creature. It's impressively rendered, and they did a good job editing into the scene, but that background isn't Jersey, for starters. The problem is they made this look too good. The creature is too well modeled and animated in a broad daylight setting. You know, a really good cryptid fake would have had the camera a lot grainier and blurrier, and I personally would have set it somewhere a little more rural, a little more farmlandy, foresty, but it's entertaining nonetheless, right?
In 5th place, we have a familiar sight. Arthur Owen describes himself as suffering from sleep paralysis on a regular basis, anywhere from between, 3 to 4 times a week at least. He took to the internet to describe that the worst instance was by far a month or so ago, when he had the same vision for a few weeks straight. Every time he woke up, a girl would enter his bedroom. She'd tell him about her day, and overall just initiate casual conversations, almost as if they'd known each other for quite some time. Arthur would feel genuinely happy and calm in her presence. But remember, I'm here to talk about demons, not happy things. Mid-conversation, she started clutching her chest and falling to the floor as if she was having a heart attack. She'd hold out her arm to Arthur, asking for help, but he could not move. He'd watched her die in front of him again and again and again, and couldn't do anything to help her. After this, he'd wake up covered in sweat, with his heart racing and panting like a racehorse. He never saw her face, but her voice was incredibly familiar. He just couldn't place it. One specific morning, when he woke up, the same vision played out before his eyes. The girl entered the room, they talked, she fell over, dying. He couldn't do anything about it, and woke up a mess. But something was different. This time, as she fell on his floor, he saw her face. She was one of his closest friends, someone who he saw every day and knew very well. He mentioned he hasn't told her, and I would recommend telling her. I've had this kind of premonition before, and sadly for me, it came true. I predicted a death the week before it happened, and I didn't mention it to anyone until after the event. Even though it happened years ago, over 10 years ago now, it's stuck with me ever since. In 4th place, we have exam stress. So this tale comes from my good friend Marissa, who started experiencing sleep paralysis during exams in her first year at university, which anyone who knows is an extremely stressful time. What's sleep? The first time it happened, she woke up with the feeling that she was being suffocated, that her bed was swallowing her up. The more she panicked and the faster her pulse and breathing became, the quicker she was disappearing into the bed. She felt like she couldn't move a muscle, and her attempts to scream were silent. After she calmed herself down, she kinda drifted out of her paralyzed state and woke up completely. The second time it happened, she awoke to see a very tall man standing by her door, holding something behind his back and moving towards her, very slowly. Once again, she was unable to move and couldn't make a sound. It wasn't until the third instance when it started to get demonic in nature. She remembers waking and feeling an enormous pressure bearing down on her and a loud, almost deafening buzzing sound in her ears. She felt threatened, as though some malevolent demonic presence was hovering above her, trying to possess her, trying to force itself into her body, and once again, she was unable to fight it off. Marissa was desperately trying to speak, to tell it to go away, to leave her alone, but to no avail. Eventually, the sound in her ears faded away, and the pressure eased, so she was able to move again. Her worst experience overall with sleep paralysis was after she'd been up all night doing an essay, having fallen asleep next to her laptop. I've been there myself. Honest to goodness, back in high school, I used to participate in fan group multicam video chat rooms, and the amount of times I'd fall asleep with my webcam on were kind of ridiculous. Anywho, embarrassing Alexa stories aside, back to Marissa. The next thing she knew was that she thought she had completely woken up, except for there was now a shadow demon looming over the end of her bed. It didn't have a face, but she could feel it staring at her, and it felt like pure evil. She tried with her whole body to scream, but nothing came out, which only made her panic more. Marissa felt like the demon was about to attack her, just before his head twitched to the side and he pounced on her chest, thrashing and suffocating her. She tried to close her eyes again and put all of her energy into trying to wake up and move her body, the whole time with the demon hallucination still attacking her. When she was finally fully awake, she wound up lying in bed for about a half an hour, shaking and next to tears, adamant in telling me that it was the scariest thing she'd ever experienced. Although she knows now that she wasn't actually being attacked by some demonic force, it's still absolutely terrifying when you're stuck in the moment and unable to do anything except wait for it to end. In 3rd place, we have the jinn. In pre-Islamic Arabia, a specific type of shape-shifting spirit known as jinn, al-jinn, or jinn, was known to be the cause of sleep paralysis. The word describes a group of spirits that inhabit the earth but can't be seen by humans in their natural form, and translate to something veiled from sight or hidden. According to folklore, they are made of smokeless flame, but they can take human or animal form. They exist in the same realm as humans, but outside of our physical world. The anglicized version of this term happens to be genie, but sadly I can't summon Robin Williams to be here with me today. Us Westerners associate Aladdin's genie with 3 wishes. So the Disney version was inspired by a folk tale in the 1001 Nights, a collection of tales from the Middle East and India called The Fisherman and the Genie. In this tale, a fisherman finds an old bottle in the sea. When he opens it, he discovers a genie that has been trapped for centuries. This story has a happy ending, as the genie ultimately bestows the fisherman with good fortune after it gets over its initial fury over being locked up for so long. So full details about the appearance and abilities of jinn vary, stories about these creatures can be found in the Quran, which is the sacred scripture of Islam. Like humans, they can choose between good and evil, procreate, and will eventually die. It is said that they live in deserted places, caves, graveyards, and, disconcertingly, darkness. So in pre-Islamic Arabia, they were said to inspire poets, since they're not described as good or bad. Still, it's believed that they're responsible for all sorts of things that befall humans, including diseases, accidents, and yep, sleep woes. A special type of jinn, known as jinn al-Kabu, is described as the culprit behind sleep paralysis, which, if I haven't stressed it enough already today, can be a pretty terrifying experience. Yes, I know, I'll say it again. Technically speaking, they aren't inherently good or bad, but depending on what you read, they are considered capable of possessing people, as in the case of jinn al-Kabu. One study also found that some people in Muslim populations believe jinn are the cause of psychiatric symptoms. In second place, we have the goofy old hag. In case any of you folks out there weren't aware, all of us here at Top 5 Scary are Canuck, and I knew when I found out about a very specific Canadian demon, I had to mention her. So this all started in the 1890s, when a small piece mentioning the hag in Newfoundland appeared in the Journal of American Folklore, and the world as a whole became aware that a strong belief in superstition had taken root in the province. Over the years, the Memorial University of Newfoundland Folklore and Language Archive, MUNFLA for short, has collected people's accounts of their experiences with the hag and the ways they rid themselves of her. It's undeniably strange that so many people in one geographic region report identical experiences, and that's the kind of stuff we'd love to see here. David J. Hufford, an employee of MUNFLA from 1971 to 74, wrote a book dedicated to his research around the hag. So visually speaking, she is described as a witch-like, wrinkled, and withered old woman with long hair. She can appear in doorways, be next to the bed, or even crawl on top of people and sit on them or pin them down. The legend is rooted so deep in the regional lore that locals have turned to using her name as a verb to describe their experience, with phrases such as, "I was hagged last night," "the hagging happened 2 nights ago," or "I got hag-ridden," being part of the regular vernacular for residents. David has reported that people thought they could summon the hag by reciting the Lord's Prayer backwards, and kill her by sleeping on their backs with stabby implements or boards with upright nails against their chests, designed to stab her when she sits on them. One victim of the hag even accused another person in the community of hagging him, summoning her on purpose to haunt him out of jealousy. Little extreme, but alright. Contemporary Newfoundland folklorist Dale Jarvis confirms that people still believe in the old hag today, and they approach the legend kind of differently than others. He is a big fan of ghost stories, having written a few books on the subject, and he tends to ask locals about their encounters or if they believe in ghosts. Most say no, but then he always counters with, "Well, have you heard of the old hag?" And people who would originally have scoffed at the idea of the supernatural reply, "So-and-so had an experience," and proceed to tell him a very creepy story. So for the people of Newfoundland, the hag exists outside of the realm of the unknown and debatable, and it is a real and present danger that people experience. So if anyone is watching from Newfoundland, please let me know in the comments if you know of any hag experiences, because I'm just so fascinated by this. In our first place, we have the Pisadera. Pisadera, also known as Pesadera, is a legendary female creature of Brazilian folklore that scares people who eat too much at dawn and steps on their bellies while they sleep, leaving them suffocated or paralyzed. Well then, excuse me, I'm making a mental note to text a buddy of mine who is both nocturnal and a stomach sleeper, since I don't think he needs any demons in his life. Thankfully, I'm kind of a side sleeper, but I can't have my knees on top of each other or they'll be weird the next day. Feel free to let me know in the comments how you folks sleep out there, since it's kind of neat the differences from person to person. Anywho, the Pisadera is considered the personification of nightmares and associated with sleep paralysis disorder. Visually, she is described as a very thin woman with long and dirty nails on very long and dry fingers, tangled white hair, wide red eyes, short legs, a big hairy nose, greenish teeth, and a large chin turned upwards. I'm surprised that Disney hasn't taken that and made her a villain yet. As if she wasn't horrifying enough visually, she also has a high-pitched, constant laugh. If you are unlucky enough to meet her one day, you will notice that Pisadera always has her mouth and her evil eyes wide open. She spends most of her time on the roofs of houses, observing the movement inside. After supper, when someone sleeps with a full stomach, she then takes action, leaving her hiding place and stepping on their chest. Those affected remain in a state of paralysis, but are still able to follow everything consciously, which brings them great despair, because there's nothing they can do to get out of that situation.
Number 5. Marchicha Corici. Now, when demonic possession is the leading symptom, you don't go to WebMD, you call the cloth, and you send a man with a fancy little black case and a crucifix to come excise the demons from your soul and your mortal body. That's basic stuff. But what happens when demonic possession occurs to someone inside the church? You don't hear about that a lot. What's the protocol? Well, in the case of Marchicha Corici, that is exactly what happened. This young woman was a member of the convent living in Romania sometime in the 20th century, when she became the unwilling host to a hostile demon that had moved in and paid first and last for rent inside her body. She believed that not only was she possessed by a demon, but that she was being spoken to directly. The devil was using her head as a landline, and she was being whispered demonic thoughts thoughts and threats all hours of the day. I can imagine that would be so exhausting. I get tired of my own thoughts. Can't imagine having to hear Satan's every little thought too. Now initially she was being treated for possible schizophrenia, but when that didn't take care of the problem, the church sent an agent in to clear out the demonic presence. She was offered a little bit of holy water to drink, but gagged it up and was then restrained to be exorcised. Now in my opinion, I feel like that's a bad test. I can't imagine holy water is really that refreshing. I wouldn't know, never had it. Maybe it's like San Pellegrino, I don't know. Anyway, she was bound to a cross and was gagged with a wet cloth soaked in holy water and subjected to round-the-clock exercising over the course of 3 days. Now she wasn't fed during this time, nor were any of her medical needs tended to, and shockingly, Marchicha would pass from her conditions, leaving this earth a free soul, if for nothing else. Now the priest involved in the exorcism would later undergo investigation, and he would insist that he was innocent from his involvement with Marchicha's death, as he was simply trying to cure her the way God intended, and her death was an unfortunate incident as a result of the process. Yeah, sure, but isn't the point of an exorcism to, get the ghosts and demons out there so the host can go on living? In the end, the courts ruled that Marchicha's death was due to adrenaline injections when she was taken into hospital care. And if you're looking for way more stories of exorcism, demons, cryptids, true crime, fake crime, just about all that scary stuff, we've got all of that and then some. Hit the bell, subscribe, and don't miss a scream, but do that after the end of this video, okay? We got way more exorcisms and demons coming up for you.
Number 4. The Exorcisms of John Paul II. Being the Pope is not an easy gig. I mean, I'm assuming it isn't. You're always having to wear funny hats while living in a gigantic palace. You're having to pray for the people of the world constantly, and as someone who is traditionally believed to be God's personal representative on earth, and due to papal infallibility, is believed by many Catholics to be incapable of making mistakes. In addition to all this, the Pope has to find time to drag race his Pope-mobile and get poked with a stick by his men to make sure that he is still alive. As if that weren't enough, he also has to perform exorcisms from time to time. One of the popes with the most direct battles with the devil under his belt is St. John Paul II. When John Paul II wasn't busy ignoring church scandals and preaching that divorced women who remarried would go to hell, he was also known for doing battle with Satan. He performed his first exorcism as Pope on March 27, 1982, when a bishop brought forward a young woman named Francesca Fabrizi, hoping that the Pope could assist her in her issues. Upon seeing the Pope, she fell to the ground and started writhing uncontrollably while sobbing. The Pope tried to comfort her, but she didn't calm down until he said, quote, "Tomorrow, I will say a mass for you." This apparently worked and she was freed, but dude, you're the Pope. Why wait until tomorrow to help? Anyways, Francesca later visited the Pope a few years later with her husband and children to show how much better she was doing. It apparently prompted John Paul to say, quote, "I've never seen anything like this before. It was a biblical scene." In the year 2000, John Paul performed another exorcism in St. Peter's Square when a woman was brought into the square and immediately began yelling and lunging at the Pope, requiring 10 people to hold her down as she drooled and yelled blasphemies. The Pope finished his weekly address and requested to meet the young woman. At the sight of him, her eyes rolled back and she started screaming to be left alone. Old JP performed the exorcism, blessing her several times, but this case needed follow-up from Father Gabriel Amorth, the Vatican's chief exorcist, and the inspiration for the soon-to-be-released horror film, The Pope's Exorcist. I guess the moral is, if you're a demon who doesn't want to be exorcised, maybe don't go to the Vatican.
Now, number 3, Exorcism TV. Now, while exorcisms have served as the inspiration for more than a few Hollywood movies about ghost hunters, it's rare that us, the general plebes and public, ever get a look behind the curtain and get to see what a real exorcism is like in all its ugliness. Well, in 1991, in a controversial move by the Vatican, Reverend James Labar oversaw an exorcism of a young woman named Gina, televised for your viewing pleasure to watch while you munch on a big tub of popcorn. Reverend Labar, before performing the exorcism, was quoted as saying, "We thought it was important for people to understand that the devil does exist, and most importantly, that the church means to help." He left out that it's just a total coincidence they're filming this and all that, and it's just out of the goodness of their heart. Now, if there's a slight waft of condescension in my narration, it's because this move was not without its controversy at all. A great number of detractors, both of the church and outside of it, argued that this was sensationalizing and exploitative of the young woman, whose problems were certainly not made better by having a camera crew pressed up against her and a boom mic hovering above her head. One critic decried the whole event and the Vatican, referring to the entire process as being regressive and medieval, propping up a mental patient for the entertainment of the masses on a Sunday. Now the kicker is the young woman was a mental patient and was undergoing treatment for her intense psychological issues and psychotic episodes, and her family had insisted that these problems stemmed from a demon instead of a mental health struggle, but that doesn't make for good TV. The exorcism went off as planned and the church declared it a success, with the Reverend being quoted as saying, "She is up and about, but not well." And the televised exorcism had nothing to do with that, I am sure. Now if you're curious about hunting this clip down, it is available out there on YouTube, but I'll warn you, googling Gina exorcism just pulls up results for the Real Housewives of Orange County, which honestly might be way more entertaining and more likely to contain a real demon in it, I feel. Number 2, Roland Doe. 2 in a row, me again, hey. Doing a list about notorious demons that led to the church intervening in an exorcism would be rather incomplete if we didn't include the case of Roland Doe. The exorcism so infamous that it would end up being synonymous with the word exorcism, inspiring the legendary horror movie The Exorcist. And to a lesser extent the original novel the film was based on, but we don't read books here, those are for nerds. Now the real case was mostly just inspiration for the film, because in actuality things are pretty different. For one thing, instead of Reagan, the host in question was a boy named Roland Doe, who may never have thrown up any pea soup or twisted his head 180 degrees, but definitely had a spiritual problem. As a youngster, Doe was a socially isolated boy who didn't spend much time with anyone else in the neighborhood, instead spending most of his time with his Aunt Harriet, who was fascinated by the occult and spirit worlds. For a birthday one year, she gave onto Roland a Ouija board and taught him how to use it and taught him of all the spirit world. This would invite troubles into his life. After Aunt Harriet would pass, it wasn't long before strange things started plaguing the Doe household. Growling from out of nowhere, furniture moving. Eventually a priest was called in to investigate and deduced that Roland had become a vessel. Now this exorcism was brutal, even by exorcism standards, which I guess is why it got made into a movie. When Roland was restrained, he managed to escape and slashed at the priest with a broken bed spring. On the boy's body, red scratch marks were spelling out Louis, so he was relocated to St. Louis to face even more exorcising. After a brutal battle by seasoned priests, Roland claimed he had a vivid dream of St. Michael battling against Lucifer for control of his soul in a divine field. Do you think he ever saw the movie afterwards though?
Number 1. This loser. In Germany in the 1930s, a new political party came into power, stoking the country's nationalism and pandering to xenophobia against the Jewish people of the country in order to justify horrible atrocities and efforts to invade other countries, thus kicking off the Second World War. This political party was called the National Socialist Germans Worker Party, but most people refer to them as idiots. Their leader, Hitler, was an evil man who led his country into fascism, caused the extermination of more than 6 million Jewish lives, and started a war that led to between 70 to 85 million people dying. In the face of all the harm this art school reject caused, many people wonder how it is possible for one man to have been so evil. Some have theorized that he was a sociopath, and others have said that anyone is capable of such atrocities if they are given the authority and power to act against those they have prejudice against. But others believe there was another element of a more supernatural nature at play. Some people thought that the Fuhrer was so evil because he was possessed by a demon. One of the people who thought this was the Pope. Vatican documents released in 2006 showed that the Pope of the era, the Venerable Pius XII, believed that little Dolphy was diabolically possessed. One of the requirements for an exorcism is that it is carried out in the physical presence of the afflicted party with their expressed consent. But as Pius was concerned about the mass exterminations taking place, he decided to take a literal Hail Mary approach against Hitler's attempts to take over the world. In the privacy of his private chambers, Pius performed a long-distance ritual of liberation of the devil on the German leader, hoping that God would expel the devil from the mustachioed twerp and bring an end to the atrocities that were being committed. Whether it be because the Pope's long-distance prayer powers weren't up to snuff, or because the evil in question was human in nature rather than demonic, The exorcism failed and the war continued, despite the Pope's hope for divine intervention.
Starting with number 5, we have Behemoth. No, not the ride at Canada's Wonderland. I'm talking about the mythological beast that dates back to the beginning of mankind, and whose name is now an adjective for any large or powerful being. The name Behemoth originated historically from the archaic Jewish name for hippopotamus, and is described as a beast from the biblical book of Job. He is a form of the primeval chaos monster created by God at the beginning of creation, being paired up with the other chaos monster Leviathan, and according to later Jewish tradition, both would become food for the righteous at the end time. Hey, if I wind up qualifying as righteous, can I have a funnel cake instead? Once again, not any kind of reference to the theme park. These beings came first, but now I'm kinda in the mood to tackle a roller coaster. While I've established that Behemoth was a brutish beast known for incredible strength, legend says he was originally created to help stabilize the world, and is known to create chaos in humans' lives, just like my roommate. He is said to take the form of a colossally large elephant with pitch black eyes covered in white scales that appear to be falling off, and has teeth the size of Mount Everest. Yeah, that's a little too big for my liking. The direct quote from the book of Job that I mentioned earlier is as follows. 15 Behold Behemoth, which I made as I made you, he eats grass like an ox. 16 Behold, his strength in his loins, and his power in the muscles of his belly. 17 He makes his tail stiff like a cedar, the sinews of his thighs are knit together. 18 His bones are tubes of bronze, his limbs like bars of iron. 19 He is the first of the works of God, let him who made him bring near his sword. 20 For the mountains yield food for him where all the wild beasts play. 21 Under the lotus plants he lies, in the shelter of the reeds and in the marsh. 22 For his shade, the lotus trees cover him, the willows of the brook surround him. 23 Behold, if the river is turbulent, he is not frightened. He is confident through Jordan rushes against his mouth. 24 Can one take him by his eyes, or pierce his nose with a snare? Behemoth and Leviathan make an appearance in Revelation 13, as they try to fight against God and can be only slain by God. Thessalonians 2:8, Revelation 19:19-20, both these beasts are extremely strong, unruly, and untamable in nature. In Revelation 13:11-12, then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns, like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon. 12, he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence, and he makes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose fatal wound was healed. And that's enough Bible babble for right now. In 4th place, we have Vine, an Earl and King of Hell. This Earl commands a simple 36 legions of demons. Because I know y'all are gonna make me do the math for this one, a legion is anywhere from 3,000 to 6,000 demons. So roughly between 108 to 216,000 demons. Where's my gold star for calculating that? And how are there so many demons? The significance of his name seems to be from the Latin word vinea, vine, which is also the name given to an ancient war machine made of wood and covered with leather and branches, used to overthrow walls. In terms of his appearance, once summoned, he will show up resembling a lion and holding a viper in his hands. Now, I don't do well with snakes, so if you request him to change said appearance, he will present in human form, with long black hair, black wings, and now holding a golden cane. I know there's people out there who might be attracted to this, present company included, but don't take that as encouragement to summon him. Known as one of the most difficult demons to summon and work with, he is also one of the only demons who can identify witches and warlocks without being previously informed about their abilities, along with having the ability to tell the past and future, which I can see is kinda tempting. Vine is insensitive to humanity and cares little for harming those who summon him, making him wildly unpredictable and dangerous to summon, along with having the power to take souls without requiring permission. I repeat, dangerous. Right in the middle of the pack, in 3rd place, we have Pazuzu. If your first response was to say bless you, we have the same sense of humor. You may be familiar with references made to him in The Exorcist and the House of Ashes video game, but we're not talking about Linda Blair's acting today. As an apotropaic entity, he was considered both a destructive and dangerous wind, but also a repellent to other demons, one who might safeguard the home from their influence if he was in the right mood. Remember, if he was in the right mood. Kinda like me sometimes. He is quoted as introducing himself by stating, "I am Pazuzu, son of Anubu, king of the evil Lilu demons. I was enraged in violent motion against the strong mountains and ascended them." Lilu demons are the class to which Pazuzu and his leagues of demons belong. There is also a notable connection to the earlier Babylonian personifications of the 4 winds. These beings, as depicted on several cylinder seals, have wings, and each represents a different direction of the north, south, east, and west winds. It's important to note that noted professor of ancient studies, Franz Wigerman calls attention to the crooked positioning of the masculine west wind in seals. Franz Wigerman calls attention to the crooked positioning of the masculine west wind in seals, which is similar to the posture in Pazuzu's physical depiction. More connections appear in later seals, as this same bent-over figure takes on talons and a scorpion's tail. The main difference in their depictions is the head, and the conclusion was made that it is Pazuzu's body and not his head that denotes him as a wind demon. Another scholar, Scott Noeagle, asserts that Pazuzu's possession of 4 wings links to the term kipatu, meaning circle, loop, circumference, and totality, suggesting his control over all cardinal directions of wind was inherited from his predecessors. Pazuzu was often depicted with a man's body, the head of a lion or a dog, talons for feet, 2 pairs of wings, a scorpion's tail, and a serpentine phallus. Around now you might be thinking, Pazuzu is a long name, he has to have some sort of a, nickname or other moniker, right? Sure. He's been called the agony of mankind, suffering of mankind, or disease of mankind. Take your pick. This god of wind and plague is known as Lucifer's right-hand man and has the power to control and rule over other evil spirits, being known to bring forth droughts and famine. It is said that he conspired with Lucifer to overthrow God, and they were thrown out of heaven together. He is fond of corrupting the innocent and good, being known to offer help that appears good and benevolent, but actually requires recipients to request more of his assistance, sending them further and further into his debt, sentencing them to an afterlife of eternal agony. See, reality is agony enough, so I'll pass. Our runner-up for today is Surgat, first mentioned in history in 1517, whose deceptive and cunning mind make him one of the most tricky demons you could possibly think of summoning. Due to his name, he is associated closely with Saturdays. Sure, he might be the least known demon on this list, lacking the background detail that emphasizes the other demons, but he is still very much to be feared. He is known as the one who can open all locks, which may seem a little silly on the surface level, but once summoned, he is impossible to escape or to conceal yourself from unless it's on his terms. Targets of Surgat are relentlessly pursued until found, and then presented with imagery until they go mad. He was the last demon to be summoned by known demon hunter and documentarist Pope Honorarius in his grimoire. Honorarius had thoroughly documented the strengths and weaknesses of every demon he summoned during his research into the oncoming War Against Demons, but had only written ability to open locks about Surgat before his untimely death, leaving history to believe Surgat was responsible for this event. Now, I'm not going to spell out how to summon him, because I hope I've made it clear enough by now that I exist to discourage that kind of behavior, but I did find it kind of neat that one would need a nail from an old coffin to do so. Oh, and before I forget, Surgat is invisible when he manifests, making him easy to lose track of. And in first place, we have Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies, Lord of Dung, and God of Filth himself. He is described visually as a small and hunched over creature with red or purple skin, ram horns, a forked tongue, and a long tail, along with incredibly powerful wings. Kinda sounds like a D&D character. He often prefers to appear as a fly when summoned, which may sound innocent until you consult history. Flies were believed to have been born from rotting flesh and plagues. According to Christian beliefs, he began his career as a false god, convincing men to worship him and trick them, so he could give faulty advice that would harm instead of helping those in need. Before in the comments asks for a Bible citation, since I haven't been including them for all of the listings today, I'll mention it now. In Mark 3:22, the scribes accused Jesus Christ of driving out demons by the power of Beelzebub, the prince of demons. The name also appears in the expanded version in Matthew 12:24, 27, and Luke 11:15, 18, 19, as well as in Matthew 10:25. Jesus knew their thoughts and said to them, "Every kingdom divided against itself will be ruined, and every city or household divided against itself will not stand. If Satan drives out Satan, he is divided against himself. How then can his kingdom stand? And if I drive out demons by Beelzebub, by whom do your people drive them out? So then they will be your judges. But if I drive out demons by the Spirit of God, then the kingdom of God has come upon you." Funny. Hanging around this spooky stuff has me quoting the Bible more than I ever thought I would in my lifetime. Guess I should have paid more attention in my middle school religion classes, or when I was altar serving as a kid, instead of just figuring out the perfect angle to tip a candle at to splash wax on my arm. What? I never said I was a normal kid. Beelzebub is commonly described as placed high in hell's hierarchy. According to the stories of the 16th century occultist Johann Weyer, Beelzebub led a successful revolt against the devil, is the chief lieutenant officer of Lucifer, the emperor of hell, and presides over the Order of the Fly. And I thought I was a workaholic. The 17th century exorcist Sébastien Michaelis, in his admirable history, placed Beelzebub among the 3 most prominent fallen angels, the other 2 being Lucifer, and Leviathan. John Milton, in his epic poem Paradise Lost, published in 1667, identified the unholy trinity of Beelzebub, Lucifer, and Astaroth, with Beelzebub as the second ranking of the many fallen angels, a quote from him claiming Satan except none high or sad. In simple English, only second place is Satan here. His specialty is in tormenting mankind, causing wars, instigating murders, and known for his ability to place humans under the spell of other demons upon request. One thing historians haven't been able to settle on is which major sin he represents, with some claiming pride, others gluttony, but also some claim idolatry. Personally, since he allegedly originated from being a false god, I'm going to side with idolatry. But let me know in the comments which one you believe.
Coming in at number 5, we've got Giuseppe Tartini. In the first episode, we discussed another virtuoso musician who is rumored to have made a deal with the devil to become incredibly talented. The speculation was just that, all rumors. But in the case of composer, violinist, and music theorist Giuseppe Tartini, his dealings with demons seem to be a little more explicit. Tartini was well renowned at his time and proved to be quite influential in how he composed and played his music. But of his hundreds of musical pieces, one stands out above the rest. Sonata in G minor, Trio de Diavolo, the Devil's Trill. Devilry and demonic imagery were not as commonplace or as well received back then. Folks could get into trouble if they weren't careful with their artistic mores. However, as Tartini was a popular performer and composer, he seemed to get away with it. Apparently, the inspiration for this piece came from a vivid dream. During this outrageous nightmare, the devil appeared and played the violin with incredible ferocity and speed. This was way back before the devil went down to Georgia, too. Maybe he's just a big fan of stringed instruments. Tartini woke up and immediately tried to replicate what he heard in his dream, but was unable to capture the full effect of the song. Kinda like a tribute to the greatest song in the world, alright? Even though Tartini couldn't replicate the exact song from his dream, the Devil's Trill became his most legendary tune. The story behind it, coupled with its name and complexity, made people believe that he either had made a deal with the devil or had been possessed by a demon to create such music. Some even believed that he grew an extra finger on his left hand that made the difficult trills throughout the piece a little more easy for him to play. Trills, double stops, high-speed runs, and a plethora of mood and tempo changes make this song extremely challenging, even for modern violinists. Even so, Tartini wasn't fully satisfied with the piece. It's said that he was so frustrated by his inability to bring his dream to life that he would have broken his instrument and quit altogether if it wasn't his primary way of making money. Or maybe, and this is just speculation on my end, he made a deal with the devil in which he forfeited his soul for an incredible piece of music, yet was unable to reach the heights he dreamed of. That's a heavy price for a result you'd hoped would have been better. Coming in at number 4, we've got Jason Ethier. Yeah, we're gonna talk about this one. It's been a little while since YouTuber J-Station had his channels taken down, and with them all sorts of videos involving demonic possession and connections to the afterlife. It's a little insane when you look at all the different videos he's put out there and all of the exaggerated claims he made about his experiences. However, he still managed to bring in millions of views and convince his audience that a whole lot of what was going on was real. From reaching out to dead celebrities with a Ouija board in an act of shockingly poor taste, to participating in 3 AM challenges where he calls fictional characters and demons in the wee hours of the morning, he's faced plenty of criticism for his bombastic and ridiculous style of making videos. But here's the thing, he's still made plenty of money doing these things. So here's my not so serious analysis of his YouTube career. J-Station made some sort of Faustian deal for his success. Why else would he make so many demon-themed videos? Why would he lie to people and put out patently ridiculous content? Why would he pretend that his girlfriend died, then rent a church, buy a coffin, and then plan on doing a resurrection video? Boom. A demon granted him the ability to rake in views and sell merch in exchange for his soul, and probably his integrity. Now, you can look to any of his videos where he claims a demon is present and see that they're pretty goofy. A lot of yelling and running around in darkness while speaking directly to camera. Most folks with a history of debunking paranormal activity wouldn't take them very seriously, and any claims of real demons in those videos are easily disregarded. But even so, the clickbaity nature of the videos worked phenomenally well and launched J-Station and those he worked with to celebrity status. Maybe more infamy than fame, but still. In the end, he probably didn't really summon a demon to trade his soul for YouTube success, but he did, in my opinion, trade his rectitude. Coming in at number 3, we've got Grant Morrison. Now here we are with another artist supposedly summoning demons. We've talked about musicians and even ended up discussing an author last time. Now there's a playwright and comics artist on the list. Grant Morrison is well known for their experimental, non-linear, and countercultural approach to comics, and has helmed all sorts of DC publications over the years. They've also famously dabbled in different types of magic, sometimes getting close to the demonic side. In an interview with Sci-Fi, Morrison had this to say about demons. "It's a bit of both. Demons definitely exist if you consider demons, as I do, to be personifications of negative feelings and states that are familiar to all of us. Fear is a demon. Hate is a demon. Addiction is a demon, as is self-loathing, or guilt, or hopelessness. Everyone's felt the fangs of these beasts in one form or another. Basically, a demon is a human-hating, self-destructive state of mind given form or voice." Medieval grimoires portrayed these disordered, diseased, or chaotic states of mind as a jumble of cladogrammatic chaos. Flies with crowns, angel-winged toads, and wolf-headed eagles with swords. These demons have been with us since humankind became self-aware, which is what gives them their supernatural, i.e. eternal quality. Hate has been around forever. As individual human beings, we can all become possessed by hate. Someone, somewhere, right now hates someone or something. Therefore, hate never dies. Hate exercises an undying power over human affairs. Therefore, hate is a god, as love is a goddess. When the individual hate you briefly feel connects with the hate that never dies, you are in touch with bleak divinity. A magical ritual designed to summon hate into your heart would align your personal transient experience of hate with undying cosmic hate, until nothing remained in your heart and soul but hate. That's what it means to summon a demon. So, while their experience with demons might not be what most folks expect, there's a lot of interesting information to consider. Coming in at number 2, we've got Edward Centineo. For a quick moment, we're going to return to the 3 a.m. YouTuber state of mind. Edward Centineo, along with his constant companion Nikki, run a channel called Arcade Craniacs, and most viewers have a tough time figuring out whether it's parody or not. All of the hallmarks of these so-called demonic YouTube videos are there, from FaceTiming fictional characters to running around in the dark after witnessing something creepy. To date, Centineo has supposedly summoned Sonic.exe, the imposter from Among Us, Chuck E. Cheese, Freddy Fazbear, Elmo, SpongeBob, and more. Now, most of these demonic apparitions are just people in suits, or so it seems, but the commitment to the gag, the over-the-top reactions to everything happening, the weird references to other YouTube drama going on woven in, and all of the incredible performances from all involved make these demonic summonings more entertaining than most. I think they're just having fun with it and poking fun at other YouTubers. Probably. And coming in at number 1, we've got Emperor Justinian. Now, this might shock you, but stick with me. A lot of people believe that politicians and other public figures are demons in human form. I know, controversial. But there are few examples as well researched and documented as the Eastern Roman Emperor Justinian. Procopius of Sejarah penned a tome called The Secret History that included plenty of scathing remarks concerning this emperor. The author truly believed that Justinian was a demon pretending to be a human. His wife, too. Of the many claims Procopius makes, there are a few that stick out. Apparently, Justinian's mother claimed that he was a demon too. Folks would often see his head disappear from his shoulders as he exited rooms, only to be right back in place when he was next seen. According to some, his face would melt into featureless flesh and he'd become unrecognizable. Now, that doesn't really seem like stuff a normal emperor would be accused of, right? Could it be that Justinian was a demon? Or maybe he summoned one for a chance at power and gave up his form to the entity in question? Coming in at number 5, we've got Aaron Layton. Authors tend to be a reclusive sort. So many tales exist detailing a storyteller's retreat to the wilderness to find peace so that they can pen their next great work. Someday, that'll be me, and you'll never hear from me again. But until then, I'll just look at others and their foolhardy demon dealings. See, being alone in the woods tends to also inspire people to look deep within and find out what they truly desire. Without the distractions of modern life, other people, and a strong Wi-Fi connection, folks have to face down plenty of hard truths. If these truths are difficult enough, or if their dreams are big enough, they might be tempted to strike up a deal with the demon. I'm not sure if Aaron Layton had actually done this or not, but his children's book seems to imply that he's an expert in this field. He wrote a book called A Children's Book of Demons, and inside are a bunch of fun and funky illustrations detailing demons the world over. Accompanying these illustrations is plenty of prose, encouraging children to be creative while dealing with their problems. It's kind of an edgy concept for a kid's book, but nothing too insane. However, it got lots of attention upon being published, drawing the ire of exorcists, religious leaders, and uptight parents everywhere. The book encourages readers to imagine demons, draw sigils, and attempt to use these strategies to assist them in their daily life, like a kid's Bible storybook, but more in line with Satanism. Most would look on and get a good chuckle out of this, but the previously mentioned folks condemned the tome, claiming that it would imbue the children with evil energies and ruin their lives. This leads me to assume two things. One, Aaron Layton knows enough about demons and Satanism to write a book that will offend people, and in his studies might have summoned one or two. Maybe they helped him write it. And two, some of the parents who ended up buying this book for their kids actually witnessed some demonic activity. Nobody would be getting so up in arms about something totally harmless, so there must be at least a little bit of power here. I wonder what the kids use their demons for. Maybe acing a spelling bee or getting extra helpings for dessert. Number 4, Charlie. Staying on the topic of children summoning demons for a moment, let's discuss this viral smash hit of a demon summoning trend. Remember when this was all anyone was talking about? Oh boy. Part Bloody Mary, part Ouija, and part internet challenge, Charlie took the Western world by storm. It kind of inspired its own miniature satanic panic as concerned parents and news organizations rushed to understand the appeal of the game. In fact, I bet it would have all blown over much more quickly if folks just calmed down a little. But kids and teens across the nation were playing this game and supposedly successfully summoning a demon. Charlie, if you couldn't tell. The game works like this. Set up a little 2x2 grid and a piece of paper, writing yes and no in each of the squares. Once this is ready, balance 2 pencils perpendicularly atop each other so that one can sort of spin freely. Now you're ready to play. Chant Charlie and ask some questions. Apparently if the top pencil moves, that means Charlie is present. Is he good? Is he bad? Who knows? But a lot of folks took advantage of this interesting stationary-based phenomenon and claimed that they had managed to summon real demons. After asking some particularly salacious questions, they got answers they didn't like and began freaking out. Did this really hurt anyone? It's questionable, but like I said before, it inspired a whole lot of new coverage and panic amongst the morally upright who believed that the kid would encourage their kids to take their paranormal investigations a step further. It's been a while since someone went viral for playing Charlie, and I can't say that I've seen any major new updates concerning folks who supposedly summon demons. So maybe it was a temporary visit, one without lasting effects, but who knows? Somebody test it out for me, alright? Let me know if Charlie's still kicking and what he offers in exchange for a soul. Coming in at number 3, we've got Robert Johnson. A classic tale is that of the Faustian deal. Somebody wants something so bad that they're willing to give up their soul for it. Success in life, and then an eternity of servitude to a dark force in the afterlife. Worth it. Robert Johnson decided he wanted to be the ultimate blues guitarist and would give anything to make that happen. Some say that he sold his soul to the devil for the skills required. When he played, his talent was so impressive that much of his audience had no choice but to believe it was acquired through paranormal means. I'm sure that did a lot for his ego. Looking into this story, it's said that he met a devil at a crossroads and Satan tuned his guitar for him. Tenacious D who. The devil went on to teach Johnson how to master the blues, which was the prevalent guitar genre at the time, and from then on he was a genius on the fretboard. No one could keep up with him, and he impressed countless listeners. However, he was met with an unfortunate fate, which only served to intensify the rumors about his skill. At the young age of 27, he passed away with foul play suspected. By that time, though, he had produced 6 studio records and thrilled folks across America. If your legacy lives on for ages like his, is that a fair trade-off for an early death? We can't ask Johnson himself, but I'm sure he'd have a strong opinion on that one. Coming in at number 2, we've got Sid White. Originally interested in witchcraft, Sid gradually became aware of and enamored with demons. Believing that a demon is an entity that has wandered our earth for ages, possibly even for eternity, he has supposedly summoned demons on multiple occasions. The rituals remain largely the same across the board, but small changes can affect what demon you'll summon. Write this down. You'll need a dark room, candles, herbs, a Ouija board, and blood. All pretty easily attainable, don't you think? Especially that blood bit. You're full of it. From there, you need to know a specific spell or chant, especially if you're looking for a specific demon. Knowing what you're getting into is pretty important too, because if you're summoning demons willy-nilly, you're gonna have a bad time. A lot of people choose to summon demons to strengthen their connection with another world. This allows those who do so to draw increased strength and insight and hopefully improve their life some. However, Sid refuses to talk about what happens once he summons a demon. That's his private time, apparently. I mean, there are a lot of things people do behind closed doors that they probably don't want to discuss with the world at large. I pulled a lot of this info from an interesting article on Vice, and I'm sure Sid didn't want all the Vice readers to know his secrets. Check out the article if you want some more insight though. It'll be in the description. Coming in at number 1, we've got Niccolò Paganini, another masterful musician making morbid arrangements under cover of dark. Paganini was well known for being able to do things no other musicians could even dream of. As a child, he was a wunderkind, quickly picking up and becoming proficient in all sorts of different musical instruments. Being a child prodigy comes with a lot of pressure though, I'm sure. By the time he was a teenager, he was an alcoholic. However, he managed to overcome this, and in his early 20s, he became a well-regarded star, composing complicated and popular pieces of music and performing all over Europe. Some of the stuff he composed, nobody else could even attempt to play for years. He could play 3 octaves across 4 strings in one hand on the violin, and won a Stradivarius for sight reading a supposedly impossible piece. One of his most famous compositions was called Witch's Dance, which raised even more eyebrows. So maybe in his darkest hours of alcoholism, he reached out to a higher or lower power and asked for power beyond his wildest dreams. Either that, or he decided to get it together. He supposedly had really long fingers too, which may have helped with his incredible musicality. Striking up deals, looking for power, and wondering what might be on the other side. All good reasons to summon a demon, but also maybe not great reasons. But hey, it's your life.